Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. Something to tell you before we get rolling here. It is one of the hottest days of the year here in Los Angeles, so you're going to get to see/hear how the heat affects us for however long this podcast lasts.
Usually, like, Brandon's house, like, it'll get warm in the garage, but usually, like, you step outside, there's this nice, cool ocean breeze. None of that today.
No.
It's just hot.
We are in a sauna right now. And I think it's going to affect the show. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Sucking me dry.
It's sucking you dry?
Yeah.
You got here before Blood and I did. How long have you been sitting in this garage?
45 minutes.
So you're pre-baked.
And I lost like 4 out of 5 Hearthstone matches, so that adds to the sweat.
Why did you lose those Hearthstone matches?
The meta decks.
The meta decks?
Yeah.
What's been really nasty for you?
Jade anything.
Yeah.
Jade Shaman, Jade Druid. Dude, there was this really crazy priest deck where I just laughed because it was so nuts. This guy's deck had like all 9 and 10 and 8 cost minions, and then he had cards that just like brought him out and copied them.
Sure.
So he had that like obsidian statue one that's like 9 mana, 4 something, lifesteal. He got like 4 of those out on like turn 5.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Seems like kind of a fun deck to play.
Yeah.
But like super frustrating to play against as he keeps getting all these big
I respected
dudes and
it. I was like,
destroying
all
them.
right, some big boys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For the pre-show banter today, I've been thinking about something that I don't know for the allies because it gets so weird from person to person. This notebook is driving me crazy. It gets so weird from person to person. I want to know your morning rituals. I want to know what time you wake up and what the first thing you do in the morning is and how regimented that is.
Chain of Blood Earth.
It's pretty not regimented at all.
Yeah.
One day I'll be awake at 10:30. The next day I'll be awake at 8. The next day I'll be awake at noon. The next day I might be awake at 6.
But that's because you're staying up at all different hours, right?
Yeah. So it just sort of depends. I mean, the one awful thing I guess you could say is that typically the first thing I do when I wake up is, like...
Check Slack.
Well, yeah, just like check the whole, like my whole set of tabs and like, all right, what, any important thing coming through email or Slack or Twitter or whatever, and, start getting up to date on the small things, get that crap out of the way.
So you are somebody that, and I say this with respect, like whenever I need to reach you, you're pretty much available and, we can work on things immediately and that's fantastic. But does it ever wear on you just being connected to all those avenues of communication, always being on Twitter, always being on Slack or email or all that stuff? Or has it just become so embedded in your life that it just doesn't even faze you?
I don't know about wear on me, but yeah, it's just like sometimes it's really easy to get lost in all the other things that need to be done and like, well, yeah, I was going to play video games. Oh, yeah, this is what I was telling you about yesterday. Like, yesterday, the idea was, okay, Frame Trap's coming up. I'm going to, like, play through all these games, like, 2 hours a game, and just, like, get through a pile of games. I got started at, like, midnight. By the time I got through, like, everything else that I was going to try to get through for the day, to get out of the way, it was midnight. I was like, okay, I'll play through Life is Strange, and that'll be good.
How long? I mean, at that point, are you pretty tired? Did you get to play Life is Strange for a while, or?
I played through the whole episode.
Okay.
It was like 3.5 hours or so.
Wow, that was a late night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fairly normal for me. I'm usually up to like 4 something, 5 something.
Wow.
But it goes back and forth, like I said.
When are you usually down for bed, Huber?
Usually like 1 or 2.
Okay.
2 nights ago, I was up till 8 a.m. working on reviews because I wanted to get... I need to get 2 done. I finished 1. I got 1 more I want to finish before Destiny comes out. Because that's like priority 1, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge
I know what
release.
that is.
Yeah.
You know. I know.
But yeah, usually 1. I tape the Dodgers game every night. And then wait for Beth to come home, and then we watch it, like, as we go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So we watch it, like, every night at around, we started at, like... Because she works super late. She works in a restaurant. So we usually, like, start the game at around 12, and then I doze off at, like, 1:30 or so. Usually catch most of the game.
Mm-hmm. Is that how you prefer to fall asleep? Is it the
Yeah.
Dodgers?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just soothes you.
It's so soothing, man. It's the best. Best.
What time do you usually wake up and what do you do?
So when I'm working out, which is most of the time, I haven't been working out in the last I've taken the last month and a half, 2 months off, so I've been all over the place. But usually when I work out, I get up at 9 every day. It's so nice. That's why I enjoy working out, is because it forces you to go on a routine.
Sure.
But
and that activity probably wakes you up better than almost anything.
Yeah. And it's so nice getting up at a reasonable hour, because you get up, you're productive, you're healthy, work on your body, work on your health, your mental health, really, because of I'll have a shake or whatever, and then sweat it out.
Sure.
But yeah, usually 9 a.m. If I'm not working out, again, for the last month and a half, 2 months, I've been really bad, haven't done anything. I usually get up at 10:30, 10:45. So
I'm usually up between 9 and 10:30. First thing I have to do, immediately, without fail, every single day of my life, is make that cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
That is the very first activity that I'm doing. It's become a ritual. And then I go and I sit down and I see if, any crazy game news has happened.
Yes.
And that's it. That's the first the first step, then check an email.
Slack immediately, though.
Oh,
open
yeah,
your
Slack
eyes,
immediately.
grab the phone,
Yep.
Slack.
Because it's crazy with Easy Allies. There's always something happening, around anywhere from 2 to 5 in the morning. That review got done between 2 to 5 in the morning. That's up now. Good to know. Yeah, so that's happening.
Well, and you guys probably see when I go through my emails, because then there's all of these news articles and trailers pop into the random channel.
Yep.
It's here's the stuff you might not have seen.
Yep. It was really motivating, though. You made me want to just go and run or something. It seems like
so
such
nice.
a good.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
and it
that's the thing. That's
it's a
the
pain in
thing.
the ass, and it sucks.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, it's once you're a couple weeks in, starting is the hardest part. It's so terrible for that initial week or so. But once you just get in that rhythm, and then you're finished for the day, it feels so good. Because then it's 10 o'clock. You feel healthy. You got the whole day ahead of you.
No, it sounds wonderful, but you were saying that initial week was the toughest. Does it ever get to a point where it's not a pain in the ass? I mean, is it always a little bit of a pain?
It's all about rhythm, It's all about that repetition.
Yeah.
So if you have a late night and you have to get up early, sometimes it's a bust. Sometimes I'll do different things in the morning. Some are harder than others. So sometimes it's oh, that's tomorrow. But yeah, just getting a couple weeks in is nice.
It's amazing to me how much I stare at screens. I probably spend 80-90% of my day staring at screens, and so now I've had to make sure that I'm putting some time in my day where I'm just not, or I'm not connected to anything, whether it's walking to lunch or just cooking for an hour at night, just even if it's only for a few minutes, it really helps a lot to just get away.
I went for a walk the other night at 12:30.
Yeah.
It's I just need some air.
Yeah. That's actually such a great time to walk.
Yeah.
Because no one's out.
Yeah.
It's cooled down.
Well,
totally.
It's quiet.
not my neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah, around people go to bed pretty early around where I'm at.
I mean, it's fairly quiet, but there's still quite a few people
Sure.
going by, and depending on where you're at, then you not too far away from frat row and all that kind of stuff. So
It's real hot.
Right now? Yeah.
It's so hot.
Well, let's
dude.
try to get your mind
Holy
off of it,
hell.
Michael Huber, by talking about something you love, video games.
Yes.
What have you been playing?
Some good stuff. Some really good stuff.
Yeah? Start with the best.
Uncharted.
Okay.
The Lost Legacy.
I have also finished Uncharted, and I didn't mean to.
nice.
Here's what happened: is Kyle finished it, and he gave me the copy that we were sent, the physical copy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's got to get back here now.
I need to bring that back here. It's a good reminder. I should have brought it today, but I didn't. And I just sat down to play it with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And we were just gonna play it for an hour.
Yeah.
Whole thing.
Whole thing.
Just kept going.
Yep.
And that's a testament to how good it is.
It's so good. I feel like that's the most underrated, underappreciated quality of Uncharted is just how easy it is to play. And how rewarding that is, too. Like, just progressing in games by itself is rewarding. And, like, you know, getting in these shootouts, overcoming... There's just... the pacing is so good. It's like, you get in a shootout, you handle that, it feels good, and then you're free to explore. You get these character moments, these cutscenes. You get invested in the characters. You know, just going from combat to exploration to story is just... I love it.
So we had Kyle on here last episode singing the praises of Uncharted Lost Legacy, but I want to know your take on it specifically. I think a lot of what you just said could be applied to any Uncharted game. So what makes Lost Legacy worth playing through, worth getting excited about, worth people spending money on and taking the time to go through it? What's different about it?
First and foremost, the two leads, Nadine and Chloe. Nadine Ross is one of my favorite characters from modern video games, straight up. I just love her quick wit, her no-nonsense attitude. You know, she takes things head on, which I love. Like, she even has these lines where, you know, she's like, I prefer a direct approach, you know, and just doesn't hesitate.
And it's certainly not all talk. I mean, you see her through most of the game just messing fools up in the worst way, and it's pretty great. And you saw that in Uncharted 4 as well,
Yes.
Definitely.
It's just a really cool dynamic, you know, coming from Uncharted 4, which was the, you know, conclusion to Nate, the conclusion to, you know, the core cast of characters. Nadine Ross was the villain in that game. It's just a really cool dynamic having her as part of your crew and seeing, you know, seeing where things from Uncharted 4 led. So I really like that.
Do you think Nadine's a stronger character than Chloe?
They're different. And them together, honestly, if Uncharted 5 was them two,
right,
I would just be clapping. I would say yes. You know, I can't get enough of these two characters.
Yeah, I think it's great because Nadine and Chloe are both, in the other games, they're really side characters where they're kind of assisting the main story. You learn a little bit about them, but you don't really dive in. And the way that they dive in here, they add so much to their past, and the way that they slowly reveal it, you're like, oh no, this isn't just a fun adventure. Like they're both kind of working through their individual problems that they have going on in a really great way.
It's perfect to pair them together because they're both so selfish. They're both so selfish. And they have good in them, I guess. You know, they have a code, you know, it's all morally gray, I guess. But still, they're both selfish characters.
Well,
you
their
know?
attitudes change.
And it's about that growth, and about them coming together. You know, I love it. I love everything about Uncharted, from the combat, you know, just being able to go about it stealth or guns blazing, and the traversal, climbing on walls, shooting people, throwing grenades. It just, everything looks so good. It's so satisfying. Visually, it's maybe the best graphically, I don't know what I'm even trying to say.
It looks real good.
It's one of the best visual games on console I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hands down.
I mean, it's such a cliche thing to say, but there were so many moments where I would just stop and be like, how did they make this?
Yeah.
It would take me a year to make one of these leaves move the way that... How did they do this? It's just every single area is so immaculately detailed. I want to pick your brain. This is something that Kyle talked a lot about, and boy, was he right. Chapter 4, specifically, where they give you more freedom than you've ever been given in an Uncharted game to kind of go and explore. What did you think about that openness and how they tackled it?
I absolutely loved it, and I saw some criticisms about it, and it makes me so angry.
Talk to the people.
Because, you know, because I guess I hold friendly grudges. You know, it's so back in the day, Mafia 2 came out. No, let's say Mafia 1. Mafia 1 came out, and that game was heavily criticized for a barren open world, an open world with nothing to do in it. And that's the wrong way to look at Mafia. You know, Mafia is a linear story-driven game. You know, it is a game that pulls you in the world, and that open world exists as a backdrop to tell a very specific story. So you're going from point to point. You know, they don't expect you to get out of your car in Mafia and like punch people and go like, you know, pick up a collectible in a back alley. Like, that's not what it's about. So I saw some criticisms for Uncharted 4 where it's like, oh, well, the open area like doesn't have a lot to do. You know, there's not much to do. And it's like this era of open world gaming, you know, does everything need to be open world? No. So I loved the freedom this part gave you because it made sense and because it was so focused to a specific part. You know, climbing the tower initially and getting the vantage point and the view of everything. To me, it just felt like one big puzzle / exploration scene.
Right. Well,
so
it's a criticism that I honestly don't fully understand because the way that they construct that scene is you have to go to these towers, but you can also collect these coins, which are optional.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff, despite being a pretty big place overall, all of those different points are relatively close together. So you're not spending ever, if you're trying to get all the coins, spending that much time traveling from one point to another. So there's not a lot of nothingness. And the few moments where you are traveling, Chloe and Nadine are having some banter back and forth, developing those characters. And so to me, it was really well spaced out, and they were finding meaningful ways of filling the in-between in a super cool way. And I loved being rewarded by getting all those coins. Yeah.
And a great way to add puzzles. Like, some of those puzzles are the most difficult ones in the entire game. There's one where you have to like rotate the circles and kind of put them in. So
a lot of rotating.
A lot of rotating. Just a cool way to add more puzzles. You know, break up the pace with combat. You know, you see, I still don't understand criticizing the combat in Uncharted because I love it so much. You know, I love shooting people in Uncharted. It feels so good. But a common complaint with Uncharted is I don't like the combat or there's too much of it. So I thought this was a way to kind of break that up, add some puzzles, you know, appease those fans, or you know. So I thought it was great. I loved it.
Lost Legacy is about 7 hours, I would say, average.
Took me 6.5 on the button.
Okay.
Yeah.
6.5 to 7 hours around there.
Yeah.
I could envision a day, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I could envision a day where I'm like, you know what, I have a free afternoon, I'm going to play through Lost Legacy again, go through that journey another time, maybe try to get all the treasures, play on a higher difficulty, whatever it is. And as much as I liked Uncharted 4, and I really did like Uncharted 4 a lot, every time I think about replaying it, I'm like, man, that's a pretty long game. Yeah. And I think that's why I enjoyed Lost Legacy so much, is it felt like the perfect length.
Totally.
Is if they were to make an Uncharted 5, would you be okay with it being around this length? How did you feel about the length overall in comparison to Uncharted 4?
It all depends. I'm glad you brought that up, Ben, because it's, you know, people always ask me what my favorite Resident Evil is, and it's Remake and 2, but I give it to 2 the majority of the time, because like you just said, when I think about replaying a Remake all the time, it's a heavier game. It's heavier on my mind. It's heavier to play and get through. It's still, you know, cozy and a breeze, and I love it. But 2 just has a lightness to it, if that makes sense, you know?
Right.
And I think of Uncharted 4, that's a heavy game with Drake and Elena and his long-lost brother Sam. Like, there's so much going on there. It is really long. So, yeah, Lost Legacy was just all the great things about Uncharted truncated and chopped up into one nice, neat little package.
Yeah.
So, it all depends on the story they want to tell in 5, I guess.
Blood, how do you feel about the combat in Uncharted? Where do you fall on that debate?
I definitely like Uncharted 4's combat. I think the mobility, like, really, and I think that's the thing that's always kind of made it stand out to me in terms of like multiplayer and stuff, is that you can physically interact with characters in ways that aren't just like shooting or punching, you know, like those dynamics of being able to climb up a wall and pull a guy off and or hop on him from above and all of that. I think that does make a difference because it gives you more sense of like being physically present and being actually, like, you know, being in that space and being able to do things that like a person could do.
I never understand the criticisms, really, and I'm not complaining or not calling people out. Like, I want to, like,
you want to understand.
I want to understand the criticism of Uncharted combat, because I compare it and I try to stack it up to the best there is in video games. You know, Gears of War always gets brought up, which has amazing combat, cover-based combat. You know, horde mode built around just shooting forever never gets old. It's so much fun. And I think Uncharted can stand toe-to-toe with that. You know, it's different. It's about mobility. It's not about hunkering down. So I just don't understand the criticisms when they say it's bad, because I think of other bad shooters, and it just doesn't make sense.
I will say the one complaint that I've had that I felt like was very legitimate in prior Uncharted games, I'm thinking like particularly about Uncharted 3, is the way some of the fights were constructed.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't hard doing things, it wasn't hard shooting, it wasn't hard getting around, but they would just lean on one thing a little bit too much. Like, there are a few too many armored dudes that just take a little bit too long to take down.
Totally.
Or there probably didn't need to be this many enemies in this specific scene, especially when there are too many enemies right after. Like,
Totally.
It was just kind of the cadence of the fights, and I think that's something that they've gotten better at, and it is
and
particularly...
for sure.
Yeah, and in Lost Legacy, again, kind of talking about that snappiness, I was done with all of the fights very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, yes, a couple of armored guys would come out, but they never overdid it. I never felt like it was this relentless wave, and you were always like, okay, now we're fighting, now we're solving a puzzle, now we're climbing around, and all of those things were given just enough room to breathe without overstaying their welcome. Even the puzzles, I would say.
You know something Uncharted combat could use now that they've added like the tall grass kind of thing, where you sneak around and
Love the grass.
flamethrowers.
Flamethrower
enemy come in.
Heck yeah. Flamethrower in Last of Us.
I'm just saying,
Bring
it's
it
like
over.
that grass is just gone. Like that option is gone.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Guys come in and just start, flaming it. It's like, oh no.
Any sort of like messing
cool.
with the environment, like being able to make like your own grapple points or destroy cover, something that there's
Or
definitely a lot of potential.
demolition guys that come in and just like destroy the rocks and you can't climb them or stuff. That's really cool.
Can we put metal slugs in Uncharted? Where you're like riding ostriches with guns. And,
That'd be so cool.
That'd be sick. Any closing thoughts on Lost Legacy? Blood, are you going to play it? I think you should play it.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm waiting for you to bring it back.
Okay. I will.
Nice.
Well, let's expedite that process.
Closing thoughts. It's an absolute pleasure and joy to play. For me, Uncharted is the perfect marriage of production values, Hollywood blockbuster, high budget, with meaningful characters that I really get invested in so quickly.
Not to drag this out, but you talked about the meaningful characters, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't played it, but the beginning of the game, specifically with the first character that Chloe interacts with, how well done that is, it just, to me, that is what is separating Naughty Dog, is constructing a scene like that. Finding ways that no other studio is injecting humanity like that. Like, it's not, I don't think, as immediately powerful, obviously, as something like the intro to The Last of Us, but if you look at, like, the intro to The Last of Us, you look at the beginning of Uncharted 4, or, like, just from a storytelling perspective, I think they're so far beyond almost everyone.
It's crazy.
Just in terms of how they're presenting things. It's great.
So, sorry.
No, it's okay.
So, I gotta take a bathroom break. So, I was like trying to find a stopping point.
Oh, no, it's okay. Blood's taking a research break. We're gonna keep going though. What else you got on your list?
Man, I love Uncharted, Ben.
Yeah.
Like, unhealthily.
Uh-huh.
I just love it. I'm like sad to not talk about it anymore because
we can talk about it
because I
you
beat
want.
the game, reviewed it. Now I've brought it up on Frame Trap. Like, I guess when Game of the Years rolls around, we'll bring it up again. But like, can we think of, back to this though? I wanna get to the bottom of this combat thing, Ben. Do you? Am I just blind?
Well, I don't think there's anything to get to the bottom.
Am I blind though? Am I biased or anything? Like, do you hold Uncharted's combat in high regard as well, or do you think it's just okay? Are there games where you like the combat way more? And I'm just talking third-person shooters here.
Yeah.
You know, not like Nier Revengeance or anything crazy like that.
Right. It's a tricky thing because the way that I'm valuing it, right, is not like, okay, here's what I want it to be. Does it match up to that? There's no sort of standard that I'm comparing it against. I don't need it to feel like anything else. You know, despite enjoying Gears of War, it doesn't have to feel exactly like Gears of War. It's not. There's a snappiness to Gears of War, and maybe that's where the complaints are coming from, where you're popping from cover to cover and locking, and it's a very physical. Yeah, it's more physical, I think, than Uncharted is. But to me, if I can tweak the combat to a point where it feels good, and I can aim at dudes and kill them, and I don't feel like I'm constantly fighting the controls, if I can throw a grenade and get it to where I need it to land, that's all I need. And I think Uncharted has gotten to the point where it's gone beyond functional. I think really Uncharted 4 did a lot with that, like Blood was saying, with the grappling hook. And the way that they're incorporating stealth, it feels really good now, where I don't feel like I'm required to be in stealth to get through the section, but it's just an advantage that I have where I can kind of thin out the crowd and then get into a firefight, and that transition feels good. I'm not necessarily like, oh man, I didn't stealth correctly. I don't like shooting, so I'm going to restart this section or something like that. I don't feel that way. And just the grappling hook is great.
Yeah.
Like, whether you're shooting or not, just
swinging
sticking
around
to something and swinging around,
and like like landing on a guy and then getting their gun in one motion, and then like shooting another guy and then running and throwing a grenade. Like sometimes sequences happen where I'm like, how did that even happen?
Yeah, I think what is unfortunate and what I do see sometimes is when you have any game that sort of rises to prominence for something that it does exceptionally well, people tend to only think of it in that way, where I sometimes see people talk about Naughty Dog games and they only talk about the story. And I'm not saying that they don't have legitimate complaints with the gameplay, or you can't criticize it or whatever, but it is a little bit frustrating when I think people are like, oh, you play Naughty Dog games for this story, and you get in sort of this rigid mindset where you kind of get tunnel vision and you can't see the smart things that it's doing mechanically as well. And you see that even with other games. You see the reverse of that, where people are only focused about how it feels and not paying attention to the cool narrative things that they're doing. I think it's important to not buy into narratives that it's easy to make assumptions. That's what I'm trying to say. Cool. Like, I remember sitting down with a former GT employee, and we were watching The Last of Us. It was being shown. It wasn't out yet. And he was like, oh, this will be a good movie. And then, like, he was just joking, and it was a lighthearted thing.
Yeah.
And he's a smart guy, but it's like, well, yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, but, you know, let's see when it comes out. Let's see what there is to play. All that sort of thing. But
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
You feel tied more of a bow on it?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you,
Okay.
Ben.
Yeah.
Well said. All right, next up, jolliness. Everybody's golf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Huber, jolly is a word that we say a lot, excessively.
Yes.
But there is no better word.
Yes.
There is no better word.
Okay, so the review's coming. It's done.
Yeah.
Some little behind the curtain here.
Yeah.
I try to sneak words into my reviews, but Blood usually, like, will take them out sometimes.
Yeah, as is his job.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, spoiler alert, Jolly made it in the review.
It made the chopping block,
yes. Like, I heard Jones doing the VO, and he's like, Jolly.
Is it in the opening paragraph?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
It's there, though.
There was.
Find it.
I don't remember the exact wording, but I had when I read how you introduced character customization, I'm like, this is such a Huber sentence. I just have to send that to Jones like right now. Like, look at this. Look at this sentence. Like, I want to fix it somehow, but I can't. It's gotta go in. It's gotta stay.
Love it. I was worried. About everybody's golf because I am a Hot Shots Golf enthusiast. For those of you that don't know, Hot Shots Golf is everybody's golf. It's just the North American title was Hot Shots Golf since
20 years?
Yeah, for 20 years, since game 1 until now. Now it is just universally called Everybody's Golf.
Except in Japan, where it's called New Everybody's Golf.
New Everybody's Golf. Yeah. So it's basically a reboot. And the reason I was worried was because open world again. Ben, here we go.
Well,
again.
is it really an open world?
Open world elements, I should say. Still, though, that is a trend in video games.
That is a word for you. That is a phrase that always raises a red flag.
Not a red flag, but, do we really need to do that on Everybody's Golf?
Yeah. I just want to say before we move on, the way that you said it, the tone of your voice, I'm a Hot Shots golf enthusiast. It was like you were revealing something. Like, before we continue, you need to know this about me.
Yeah.
Like, put that on the dating profile for Michael Huber. He's a Hot Shots golf enthusiast.
Well, so the reason I was worried, not because it was open world, but because of the online focus. Creating a character and taking them online, there was so much personality in the characters in Hot Shots Golf. That I was worried that was going to be lost by making characters. It reminded me of Dragon Quest IX in a way, where kind of the personality of the crew in Dragon Quest VIII to me was kind of lost in Dragon Quest IX by creating these avatars. But that is not the case. For the first time, really, I shouldn't say the first time, but for the first time in a while, I was so comfortable and so happy creating a character, Ben.
Yeah.
I'm usually bad at this. I don't call myself a creative person when it comes to building games and customizing characters. I usually just make a big Nappa-style brute.
Okay.
Or, just me in the game. It's like, all right, here's Huber. I'm just going to put myself in this game. Everybody's Golf is just all about fun and I made just a little tiny version of me. I don't know if you've seen my character, but it's just like a little me with like this crooked backwards hat.
Yeah.
Oh, right. You've got the little tiny guy.
Yeah. And it's so fun unlocking parts for your character. Not only do you unlock clothing, but you unlock body sizes and shapes and voices and haircuts. And there's so much customization that it feels so good creating a character that the personality now is on those created characters,
right.
which I am usually skeptical of, but they nailed it. There's so much personality in each created character. Is what I'm trying to say.
Streamed about an hour of it, and you can watch
I saw your
archive.
character.
Yeah, I made a character named
Hilarious.
Zort, and he looks like a more grotesque version of Tingle. And what really sold him is the way that he just like bounces when he's standing there.
He was walking like this.
Yeah, it wasn't just.
Did he shake his butt really provocatively
it
at
was
one
very
point?
strange. It wasn't just the way that he looked. It wasn't just his appearance, but he would raise his knees a little bit too high when he walked, or just the bounciness when he's standing still, or the way that he would emote, the way that he would smile. Yeah. And again, it's just all of these tiny little things. They inject so much personality into every facet of this game. I think you could feel content purchasing Everybody's Golf 100% on vibes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Totally. Totally. And you go online, again, which I was kind of skeptical about. I have no problem with online games, but,
it's kind of like an always online kind of thing going on?
You go to the course. So the courses you unlock, you can go to and roam around them freely. And there's little coins that you can pick up, and people are there just going through from hole to hole. You can stand on the green just right in front of a person as they're going for a putt. So you can taunt them on their screen.
That seems
that seems a bit much.
That seems like something that could start really fun and then get pretty grating over time.
Yeah. Well, it's everything about Everybody's Golf is fast though. So if I'm taking a putt and someone is standing right in front of me, I can just quickly get that over with, and it'll transport me. Because when I'm doing that, if I'm doing a tournament or whatever, you can finish the hole really quick and then go to the next one really quick. So the people would have to like follow you. Like there's a good separation of I finished this hole, now it's on to the next one. So I'll kind of leave that troll behind. You know, it doesn't seem like you can really exploit that and like stalk someone from hole to hole.
In my brief period of time that I spent with it, you're raising your ability with everything that you're doing, and so like the more that you're getting nice shots, that's going up. The more you're putting backspin on something, that's going up. But I didn't really get to play enough to see how that impacted my performance in the long run. Does that feel substantial? Do you feel like you're progressing at a good rate in the game?
Yeah. All the club stuff that you level up, I mean, the dopamine feels good of constantly leveling up your clubs, but I do feel like the putter and the driver are obviously way more important than every other club. So, like, raising your power for the driver is going to be more valuable than raising the power of a 5 wood, or, you know. So, that stuff is valuable. Some of it feels it kind of feels unnecessary, but at the same time you do see the benefits on the course when you're redoing holes, because the single player, again, there's a full-fledged single player, which is really nice, that is self-contained away from multiplayer. You know, but everything you're earning in single player is crossing over, so it's all seamless. But there is a single player, and you're going through tournaments, and when you finish enough tournaments, you play a versus character, and then you play more tournaments and do a versus character and rinse repeat. But since you're doing the tournaments at the early on, you play the same hole repeatedly. So you unlock courses kind of slow.
Okay.
But you see the benefits that way, because what used to take me 2 shots to get to the green on a par 4, now that my driver and the other clubs are more powerful, I can sometimes get to it in 1 hit. So you do see those rewards pay off, and I like the pace of it. And you're constantly earning. You know, you win a tournament, you get XP with your clubs, you get XP towards the next versus character, you unlock customization items. So it's you're constantly earning.
Tell me about the side stuff. Tell me about driving the golf clubs around, not golf clubs, golf carts, and fishing. Does that stuff matter? Is it fun to do?
The golf cart is really fun. It takes that and fishing take a while to unlock, so you don't get it right away, which makes it, you know, more special when you do finally get it. The golf cart just feels nice to drive around, especially when you're just bombing over the dunes on the online mode, you know. But it also plays into what is the biggest surprise for me, and that's Turf War. So Turf War is
San Andreas.
Yeah, Turf War. Seriously, strapping a 9 on the Turf War. Yeah, San Andreas vibes. Turf War is the competitive mode for everybody's golf, the primary competitive mode, and it's Team Red versus Blue. We're Halo now. Halo meets San Andreas.
Okay.
Team Red and Blue, and you're given a time limit. So it'll be like, all right, you have 6 minutes to score on these 5 holes. The best score wins. The best team wins. So it'll be like, all right, go. So then everyone scatters. They go to a hole, and the time is ticking down. So it's so frantic, Ben. Like, you think just making these shots is stressful normally?
Yeah.
When you're online and you're racing against the clock, it is frantic. I was shanking shots left and right. I was shanking shots because I was under pressure. I was panicked. It got to me. But the reason I'm bringing it up with the golf cart is because you have to go from hole to hole to place to post your score for your team.
Sure.
So the golf cart, you need the golf cart to help, you know, because you finished and you drive to the next one.
And I can imagine that's the most frantic part.
It is.
Is driving that car, trying to
so
get there.
fun.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, there is one little gripe that I have with it. Mm-hmm. You're gonna roll your eyes, Ben. Here we go. Microtransactions.
No, I think that's a fair gripe.
No, I mean roll your eyes that it's even in everybody's golf.
Well,
you know,
yeah.
Why?
Everybody's golf $60 game, right?
40.
40. Okay.
So in this mode, there are warp pads, teleportation pads that you can step on activate and warp to any of the holes in the match, in the turf war. To do that, you have to use a warp token. You can get warp tokens by prizes and finding them in the wild. You can find these.
Yeah.
But you can also buy them with real money.
Wait a
minute. This all sounds really shady and sketchy.
Uh-huh.
But from my experience playing, I played a couple hours of Turf War. From my experience, it didn't impact play that substantially. It was very, very minimal. Like, I wouldn't even notice, really. I would drive the cart and get to the next hole so fast on most of the courses within seconds because they're all right there. So warping, sure, you're going to have a tiny, tiny advantage, but it felt so minimal and so insignificant that it didn't bother me. But at the same time, the fact that it is there and you can do that.
Well, that's the psychological weird thing, right?
Yeah.
Where, I mean, I haven't experienced it for myself, so I'm just talking about it from what you're describing.
Yeah.
But I think, in a way, just as annoying as, like, the actual literal consequence of it is the fact that it's always in there in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
When you lose, you're like, well, did they warp? What's going on there?
Yeah.
And maybe there's plenty of evidence out there to suggest that it is not consequential. It's not that big of a deal as you're describing. But it's frustrating in these games, even just having to deal with that.
Yeah.
Even going up in any sort of competition when you're thinking like, what? How did this happen? Where did the money change hands?
Yeah, because it's
like
such
it's like if Mario Kart, like you want to jump through that shortcut on the cheap beach. And it's like, oh, but do you have the ticket?
Right.
You need to pay the toll to get through the shortcut.
Right, and then you can always go, well, you can earn those tickets, but it's like, did you? Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's upsetting that it exists, especially in such a friendly, inclusive game.
Is that the only thing that you can spend real money on?
Yeah, you buy tickets, and then with those tickets, you exchange them for the tokens.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Well, it is what it is, I say. And again, that's such a tiny little thing in a mode that is a tiny little thing in the huge game. When I weigh it all in my brain, it's frustrating that it exists, but it didn't offend me or personally hamper my
Well, I mean, and that's one of the
experience
things, like when you're writing a review or something. That's all, like from a writer's perspective. This is why microtransactions are annoying, as well, because people genuinely want to know about those things. Like, are they in the game? How do they work, etc. And it could be something that really does not matter.
Yeah.
And then you waste all this freaking time just explaining what the heck it is.
Yep.
It's like, well, you pay money to get this thing, and then that thing lets you get this, and then but in this circumstances, this thing's a cosmetic, but in the other thing over here on this side, it actually has stats and it does matter. And
sometimes
it's such a freaking train wreck of writing an instruction manual.
Oh yeah.
On
That's a great way to describe it, because sometimes, whether it's my own or other people's paragraphs on the microtransaction part, they're always calling it these weird names, and so you're reading this paragraph and it's like, well, all right, so you need the corks, and you get the corks by going into this lobby between 5 and 9 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays, and then once you have your corks, you'll trade those in and you'll get the sloops. And the sloops you can earn, but you can also pay real money for, and then you trade in the sloops, but you can also combine the sloops into a slam. And it's just it's when you actually go through it, when you're playing the game, it's maybe not that bad, but just explaining it, because what did you call it? It's like, well, you got to get the tickets to get the warp stones, and the warp stones. It's just it's a headache.
Yeah, I was like, you can buy them, whatever.
Right.
I tried to have it minimal, but also,
but at the same
feelings.
time, you try to breeze over it, and I read through Hubert's script, and I'm like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
What's a warp token?
Yeah,
we've never brought up a warp token before.
Okay, all right.
So it's like, all right, you gotta go back.
A little more detail on this.
Tweak that first sentence a little bit.
And it's hard because people are rightfully skeptical. I mean, there are a lot of readily come to mind examples of microtransactions that make the game worse, or they cheapen it or something. But it's also, frustrating because there are times where it's like, okay, this is done about as well as you can do it, and it's not that big of a deal, and there's still a lot of game here. It's still frustrating that you're spending, a paragraph, 2 paragraph just trying to explain this thing when you would much rather focus on the other aspects of the game.
I feel like Injustice 2 nailed microtransactions.
Wow.
They're as dirty as possible while being inoffensive. Does that make sense? So they're there, and they suck, but they don't really impact play. There was one thing where you could buy that would like immediately level up characters, but at the same time, you first had to have a max level character to do it. But then you can still get a max level character like pretty quickly. Here we go.
And that's the thing.
But you couldn't buy cosmetic items really, except the premier skins. But all the gear you had to earn within the game, so really it felt rewarding still to get that stuff because I knew that you had to earn it and you couldn't just buy it. Unlike in the past with Mortal Kombat, where you could unlock the crypt just with the push of a button and the slide of a credit card. So
I love that I've gone through the same reaction that you just had, where you're like playing the game and you've kind of made peace with it. You're like, this is fine, but then the more you think about it, you kind of have that moment of crisis. Wait, am I cool with this? I was playing Manat yesterday on stream, a new Street Fighter V character, who I really enjoyed. And it had been so long since I played Street Fighter V, and I played through her arcade story mode. It took no time at all. And I was like, you unlocked the story outfit. And I was like, oh, cool. I can't wait to go and check this out. You have to go, once you unlock the story costume, you have to go, and then you can buy it. Like,
you unlock the ability to purchase it.
And I was just like, really?
Well,
really?
It sucks the other way around too. We'll get to more in depth on Agents of Mayhem later. But like, I got all these codes for skins. Like, had all these different specific retailer skins. Like the funny thing is like they called it the Legal Action Pending DLC. So basically, a bunch of skins that make them look like the Hulk and like the guy from the Thundercats and like Wonder Woman and like all this stuff, and like they just, Man of Iron or something. They'll just put some name on it so you know what it is, but it's not that really, but it is really, so.
That sounds like a very Volition thing to do.
So, but anyway, so like I got these, when they sent me the review code, they was like also sent me like 4 other codes for all these unlockable things that really you'd have to probably buy the game from 4 different retailers or something. And, but like you still don't actually like have them. You still have to like get them out of treasure chests after you've potentially bought them, and hope you get the dice roll to get you the skin that you actually wanted. It's just, this stuff's weird.
Damn, Shadow of War coming out. That's
yep.
Public offender number 1.
Yeah.
In my eyes. That's the worst.
I bought everybody's Golf and Life is Strange Before the Storm and all this stuff, and I just wanted the games. I didn't like look into any pre-order stuff. I didn't care. And then I'm like, I hit to download it, and it's like, all right, we're now downloading the 6 costumes that you unlocked. And it's fine. It's it's not an actual crisis.
I didn't even look into it. Life is Strange did have like a bunch of weird DLC things.
You can get Chloe's like OG costume just from pre-ordering it, which I got.
And I'm like,
cool. Sure.
Going through that stuff and being like, okay, well, I guess now I should install.
That game is not one I'm gonna stick a skin on. I don't.
OG Chloe's costume though, I'm cool with that.
Sure.
Twitter marketing, they got me. Whoever's running the Life is Strange Twitter account, it was like, now's your last chance to get Chloe's Life is Strange costume.
That's why you ended up buying it.
And I was like, all right, I gotta buy this. I want that.
The code did come with it.
And it's
they got me.
It's an easy thing to complain about, and I don't want to oversell it or over exaggerate it or anything like that. Like, I understand that, especially now, there are a lot of games coming out, and people, if having a little extra costume gets more eyes on your game, on some level, I can understand that.
Yeah.
And so I do think anytime we see that stuff, it's easy to just be like, oh, well, this is awful, and then just have our rant and move on.
Yeah.
But
Some are worse than others.
Some are worse than others. Exactly. That's all I'm trying to say.
Totally. Not all microtransactions are terrible.
Right.
So,
what else have you been playing?
Lastly, Absolver.
Absolver. I'm so curious about this game.
Oh, it's fun.
How's the music? Austin's been hitting me up.
But it's strange
That's pretty
because
awesome.
there's kind of a lack of music.
Yeah.
There's so many stretches of just silence and nature and I mentioned it on stream. I streamed it with Ian. It was really fun. We did 2-player co-op. This is a very friendly co-op game. Mm-hmm. It's been called Dark Souls meets For Honor. It kind of pulls from both of those games. It's a very short game in terms of story stuff. So you create a character. For people that don't know what this game is, you create a character. It's all about martial arts, and it's kind of a hard game to explain. So it's similar to Souls in the sense that you're going through these environments. It's one big interconnected environment. It's kind of big, but at the same time, it's kind of small. Again, this is a small game from a small team. Mm-hmm. So when you're going through these environments and you're coming across new areas, other players will pop up, and you are free to attack them, ignore them, or team up with them. In a really nice, easy, seamless way.
And these
I really
other
want to stress
players
that.
are not. It's not like the AI of another player. It is
Correct.
an actual player.
An actual player. So everyone has the same mission. The mission is to kill or defeat, what have you, defeat 6 marked ones, which are like these champion people, and then 2 or 3 bosses, and then that'll unlock the door to the final area that you go in. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, everyone is, in this open world trying to take out these targets. So the co-op is so friendly because you can just simply, you hold L1 and your list of emotes come up, and if you see someone, you can highlight them and hold the emote button really quick and go to, team up or duel. Just right there. So it's so easy. I'll come up to a boss.
Wait a minute. When you're coming up to somebody and it's team up or duel, that's an option that you get?
Yeah, or you can just straight up attack them. You don't have to make your presence. You don't have to say anything.
Let's say you say team up and they say duel. How does it sort that out?
So it'll be like you'll say team up, and they'll just say no, and then it'll be duel, and then you're hostile towards each other.
I see.
And you can either run away. It doesn't lock you in a duel. It'll
I mean, that makes sense.
It'll just say you're
couldn't
hostile.
Agree to
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd have to agree to be friends.
Yeah. So it's
Like if anyone disagrees, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
So what
punch
was
you in the face.
What was your experience? Did most people want to team up or do they want to fight?
A lot of people leave you alone. I would say it's mixed. I would say it's perfectly mixed. A lot of people left me alone. A couple people teamed up, wanted help with some bosses and whatnot. A couple of the bosses you have to take on by yourself, which is great. Cool. A couple of the primary bosses, which I really liked. And then a couple people would just attack you on sight, which is it's so intense.
Yeah.
But the combat, so from my limited skill level, my limited skill set, okay, remember I beat this game, and I also went online. This is a primary online game. I'll get into the online stuff in a moment. But to me, it felt more like a classic beat-em-up than a Souls / For Honor combat system. Mm-hmm. To me, I would mash my way through 98% of the encounters and be fine.
See, that's interesting to hear because I was watching somebody stream it.
Totally.
And it seemed because you're making your own fighting style. You're unlocking new moves.
Yep.
And you can
I can only imagine.
Like God Hand, you can slot those moves in at different points.
Yeah.
And it seemed like almost overwhelming. Like what
it did seem overwhelming at first, for sure. Because again, you have 4 angles, right? It'll be top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. So whichever one you're starting in will be your square attacks. So you have the square attacks for each of those, and then triangle will be a transition to another stance. So if you get all, that's where the really like minute skill sets come in, when you have that perfect flow going from, square, 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 triangle into this. Maybe I want to do triangle again in transition, triangle again, then throw in some squares. If you really dive in and dissect that, it can probably be pretty crazy. But for the whole game and then some online, I went online and was just brute forcing and winning nonstop.
So you were taking the same approach?
Yeah.
Okay, what was that approach specifically?
Brute force, strength.
I mean, were you just mashing square? Like,
yeah, like I would have, my guard breaks into like this elbow move, and then that would transition into a couple low kicks, and then back into heavy.
And you pretty much took this strategy throughout the whole campaign as well, the story.
Whole game.
And
online.
Did that bother you? Do you wish you kind of interrupted that strategy?
No, because Ben, like one of my favorite genres are just classic beat 'em ups. I just love it. So I didn't need revengeance level combat here. I didn't need For Honor tactical craziness. It was refreshing, maybe because of the climate right now with so many video games. 2017 is so insane. There's a game every week coming out, and a lot of these games are really, really long. So I think at this moment in time, it was refreshing, and I was happy that this game was short and that I didn't have to put a ton of thought into creating a deck.
Yeah.
And that I could get through easily, because I was overwhelmed at first. I was like, I want to play this so bad, but I don't have time. And then I realized, like, hey, just throw some moves in and have fun and just mash your way through, and you're going to have a really good time. And the game is, pretty short. Like, this is a weekend game that you can get through, and you're going to have a great time. But for players that are crazy, again, now I'll bring up the online stuff. When you beat the game, the end game is going online to one-on-one classic duels. You unlock other modes. I didn't get far enough to unlock the other modes. I think there's probably maybe 2-on-2 or four people free-for-alls, which are probably awesome. When you really start climbing those ranks, then I'm sure it gets more important getting all your moves. But for the whole single-player campaign and the early stages, you can just mash and have a great time.
See, I was hoping you would have a story basically where you ran into somebody who was taking a completely different approach from you and just demolishing you.
Oh yeah, well I did online.
Okay.
Because I did the strength spec, and it's more about absorbing the hits.
So what are the different specs?
So there's one where you absorb, one where you parry, and one where you dodge.
Okay.
And absorb is cool because if you flick the right stick, you go blue for a second, and if you get hit, you take less damage, and then you'll get more health back when you beat the opponent. So you're kind of giving them health to kind of take back.
Okay.
But I went online, and most of the people were parrying and dodging, and I was just boom, 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 like, and it was
the wrecking ball that is Hubert.
Yeah, just brute forcing it. It was so fun, and
just imagine some guy with like a little stick or like pool cue or something, just coming up and just like beep 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 beep, and he was just like.
I feel like.
But it was friendly, like Soul style, because you do the bow before. So.
I feel like there are probably, this has happened to you unknowingly multiple times, where you've gone against somebody who, like, you're their first match online, and they had been training for like hours beforehand or watching videos and stuff, and like learning the ins and outs. But the thing that they didn't account for was just the boom,
casual
boom,
humor, casual humor,
like,
just brute forcing.
Right, and you just steamroll over them, and like it feels like all that time has been just wasted. But I'm interested
in the high level play. That's what I want to see. How crazy that gets.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would ever get to the high level, but I'm interested in fooling around with it. I'm interested in toying with it.
Ben, you'll love it.
Okay,
it's so fun.
I want to play it.
This is a $30 game.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's a soothing game in a sense. It's very tranquil. Again, there's not a lot of music. The environments are cool. It's a good looking game, and it's fun. It's really fun. Cool. I really enjoy it. I recommend it for sure. There's also a bunch of gear you unlock, and you can cosmetic change, and that adds stats and speed and defense and attack.
I'd like to try, once I've wrapped my head around it, try playing it against you, I think.
Oh, the dojo. I would love to see you create a crazy deck.
Oh, yeah.
Because those transitions probably get so crazy.
Sure.
I can't even imagine the
We
high...
do have a stream for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there you get weapon attacks.
Ian was on there with you last night, too.
Oh, yeah. Ian and I, it was so cool. The online is so cool again, Ben, because Ian and I teamed up, but there's friendly fire. And it reminded me of Left 4 Dead on Expert mode, which I love so much. Left 4 Dead Expert. Because when you're overrun by hordes of zombies, you know, you want to just blast away as fast as you can. Right. But if you friendly fire once on Expert, your teammate goes down. So you gotta have that frantic level of play, but you also have to pick your shots.
Yeah.
Friendly fire and Absolver is similar because when Ian and I would rush people, you know, we would have to kind of space ourselves out and pincer them, and then like more people would come, and all of a sudden it would be 6 people fighting around.
You inadvertently really bummed me out.
That there's no Left 4 Dead 3?
That there's no Left 4 Dead 3?
I know, I thought of that when I brought it up too.
That just...
I know.
How does that not happen? How does that not happen?
Is it a troll that we are on... The next game in all of these series are Portal 3, Half-Life 2 Episode 3 or Half-Life 3, Left 4 Dead 3, Team Fortress 3, Dota 3. Is this a weird coincidence, or are they planning...
I would argue that they probably don't need a Dota 3 right now.
For sure. But I mean, the fact that we're all on these 2s for them...
Yeah.
You know, are we getting an...
that there's some part of this cult that has this aversion to the number 3?
Or Gabe Newell is planning, like, on March 3rd, 2033 or something.
Yeah.
That, like,
he releases all of them.
Yeah.
The black box.
The black box, exactly.
Blood, did you play a lot of Left 4 Dead?
No, I didn't really get to play it
really
that much.
Okay, because for me and my circle of friends and kind of just the communities that I was involved with at that time, I mean, Left 4 Dead was a game that everybody was playing. And I feel like it's not brought up in the same way that I hear Mass Effect brought up, or like BioShock or Portal. I don't see as many people talking about Left 4 Dead, but there was a number of years where it just felt like one of the biggest games in the world. Yep. And rightfully so, because of how much fun it was. And part of that was the difficulty levels, like you were saying, where you could play on normal and it was just sort of this franticness, this looseness to it. But you bump that up and suddenly it's like this ruthless efficiency that you have to have.
Ruthless efficiency. Well said.
Yeah.
And the Civil War closets. Just everyone going in a closet, 2 people stand, Doug, stand, reload! I'm reloading! It's so
Have we done
good!
A Left 4 Dead stream?
I think the game trailers we did for
Huber
sure.
definitely has.
I think it's time for another one. I think it's time for another one, yeah.
It is a lot harder than I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we streamed it a while back. Like, again, Ruthless Efficiency, we used to get through Expert.
Yeah.
Not no problem, but we used to be able to get through it all.
Right.
I remember when we streamed it most recently, I want to dig up that stream. We got to the carnival, where you have to activate the roller coaster.
Yep.
And you have to run on it. Full wipe.
Those levels were really well designed. How long ago was that? I'm curious.
I feel like it was a year or 2 ago.
Okay.
Well, GT's maybe
it's
2
time.
years ago. It is.
Maybe
Brad
like
will 100% be down.
Yes. I do have some news for you though, Huber. You, as you tend to do, said the phrase that got us caught in a frame trap. It's been a while since you've played it. Both of you have played it. The Caught in Frame Trap's a little bit friendlier now, where they just sort of whisper in my ear like, "Hey, you're in here," but they wait for you. They wait for one person to finish talking about games. Do either one of you perhaps have any idea of what it was that Huber said that got us in this frame trap?
Brute force.
It's good. They would like something like that.
Portal? I don't know.
Friendly Grudge.
Friendly Grudge.
That was a while
That's what it
back.
was. That's what set off the
That
alarms.
was a while back in
Friendly
there.
Grudge.
Yeah.
Mafia 1 reviewers back in the day. I have a friendly grudge of them.
Yeah. If this is your first time watching a show, it's probably not. But if it's your first time watching a show, at any random point, it's been kind of happening at the same time. It's been weird. I didn't think anybody would say Friendly Grudge, but when one of these fools, or even myself, if I forget, says the word or phrase that is forbidden, we get put into this game, and in order to get into this game, they have to compete. They have to answer questions. Whoever gets the most points gets us out. And there's always a theme for the Caught in the Frame Trap. And it's something that I'm obsessed with and is now making its way into Frame Trap. I'm obsessed with how long video games are. I frequent a site, How Long to Beat. Every time I'm playing a game,
I love How Long to Beat.
either for review or casually, I'm always going to How Long to Beat, and I'm seeing, all right, how long is it taking most people to do the main story, the extras, and they have all that stuff broken down.
Yeah.
It's
Ballpark.
There's something comforting about knowing, all right, I'm forming this bond with this game. How long is that bond going to last?
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes, though, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
For spoiler reasons.
I think with
Yeah.
Hellblade, I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Hellblade has an in-game meter though, basically.
What do you mean with
The ring, like,
Oh, yeah.
you'd have to find the collectibles basically,
Right.
But like you can basically track your progress with the ring.
Yeah, totally. Good call, bud.
Well, for this Caught in the Frame Trap, I've picked 5 different games, and you have 3 options for how long it takes,
this is
according to
fun.
How Long to Beat,
This is fun.
to get through just the main story.
Okay.
So don't think about 100%ing it. Don't think about speedrunning it. It's just based on that site's data, how long did it take most people to do a casual, basic playthrough of these games? Okay?
Ben, what's your favorite forbidden jutsu?
My favorite forbidden jutsu? I don't have one. I'll have to let me think about it. I'll come back to you. It may not even come back to you during this episode, but we'll come back to you at some point.
It's on hold.
On camera, I will tell you about my favorite forbidden jutsu. I'm kind of a Naruto scrub, so I don't have the knowledge.
But you're an anime vet.
No, I'm not even an anime vet. I'm just somebody that likes anime.
Dude, I was driving over here. I'm sorry to pause this really quick, Ben.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something. We live in a era of crossovers right now. There's so many crossovers.
Absolutely.
Mario Rabbids and Persona and Sonic and
Persona and Blaze Blue.
yeah, Shovel Knight in No More Heroes.
Uh-huh.
Two-part question. Do you foresee a crossover character appearing in Dragon Ball FighterZ? And if so, who would you want it to be?
I don't think there's going to be a crossover in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Here's why. There's 2 reasons. It doesn't need it. I think there's enough... The conversation that you're hearing about Dragon Ball FighterZ over and over again is, oh my god, look at how faithful it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a narrative that's really working to their advantage, where people are, posting those images where it's like, look at how this lines up exactly with something that they've done in Dragon Ball, and how meticulous they are with their references and the way that the environments look. And so I think if it's like, here's Yoda or something, I mean, I'm sure it wouldn't be that.
Here's Naruto.
That sort of spins that in a way that it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's something that you save for a future game. Like, there's enough excitement around sort of this pure, like, this feels like Dragon Ball fighting game that's made by this highly reputable company that I don't think they're going to do it.
Cool. Bud, you agree?
Yeah, I don't foresee it having any crossover characters, but if it did,
I can't wait.
I like this. I like what you're doing. Yeah.
I could. I think Ayla from Chrono Trigger would be a good fit. Have the Toriyama art style.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have a melee character.
Wow.
Come in there, with her club. Start wrecking some fools.
Everyone watching just did the Brad emote.
Yeah.
Right.
What would that voice be like?
I don't
Could
know.
be really
I mean, it was
fun.
probably she was voicing those little anime scenes that they did later on, right?
I didn't even remember that those anime scenes were voiced. I'm just remembering the intro and the music and the animation, which was amazing.
Yeah, maybe they.
If you haven't
I
seen
can't
those, it's
remember
worth
whether
just
they
seeking
actually
those out. I
had
don't know.
voices or not. Yeah.
I don't remember, but I mean, any character from Chrono Trigger would be good. You get Frog in there.
Yeah, but
That's
I mean,
pretty high.
would Dragon Ball FighterZ be the right game to throw a sword user in the mix?
Trunks.
Trunks
Yeah.
got that,
Trunks.
that blade.
Then that'll work.
One of my favorite images when he has the sword. All right, sorry.
No,
Off
it's
topic.
no. That's the whole point of the show is
Sorry.
to be off topic.
I wanted to make sure I asked you that. I was driving over. I was like, oh, it's a question for Ben.
It's funny that we're talking about Chrono Trigger
we
because
go.
that's the first one on the list.
Okay.
How long does it take, according to How Long to Beat, to get through the main story of Chrono Trigger?
Main story.
A, 17 hours. B, 23 hours. C, 31 hours. There's one rule that we did not set up right away. Two things that I heinously forgot, so you guys keep thinking while I'm talking. The first thing is if you guys want to answer what the demons require today, is you need to whisper HOTTAKE into your mic. And whoever says that first will get to answer. Okay. But more important than that is the reason why we can be a little bit more relaxed about Caught in the Frame Trap is because we have some outside benefactors that are buying us more time. They are giving us energy. They're giving us basically a Kamehameha.
Perfect.
That are helping us out. And we've got two very special sponsors today. One's been supporting us from the beginning, and another one is brand new.
Oh,
nice.
Both of them are awesome. Our first one is Argos of War. Argos of War is a first-person World War II experience that redefines the survival genre. Launching with an unrelenting 6-kilometer environment and featuring innovative multinational warfare system, foraging, hunting, salvaging, bunker building, NPC and resource management, and a deeply customizable job system, your strategic and survival prowess will empower you and your brothers in arms to battle towards multiple paths of victory. Argos of War is more than just another survival game. It's a love letter to World War II and survival fans alike. Follow the development of the project on Twitter at Argos of War for daily updates.
Boom.
And our second sponsor, like I said, brand new. Very simple. It is just Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering.
Nice.
Who has been a long-time Easy Allies GT fan, always a super cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
And just decided to support the show.
Nice.
So thank you, Dark Knight.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it. Now back to our Caught in a Frame Trap. Is it A, 17 hours, B, 23 hours, or C, 31 hours?
HOTTAKE.
Yes.
B.
You're correct. 23 hours, according to HowLongToBeat.com.
That's
Well
not
done.
bad. That's not bad.
You just snuck in there.
I think I looked it up how long to beat not too long ago.
Okay, so you've looked it up. Yeah. You've looked it up. The answers are also a little close to you, which I'm kind of worried about, but I trust you.
Oh, I'm not.
You're an honorable person.
No.
Second one, Halo Combat Evolved.
Ooh.
The first Halo game. A, 7 hours. B, 12 hours. Or C, 10 hours.
HOTTAKE.
Bloodworth.
C.
Correct! We're 1-1.
Nice.
I'm going to mess this up if I don't write it down, so. Blood, you got that pretty quick. This is a tricky one. Just throwing numbers out there and then trying to parse that with your individual experience can be tricky. Next one, Pikmin 3. Is it A, 21 hours, B, 26 hours,
God.
or C, 13 hours on average? Blood, immediately.
C.
C! It's C!
Oh. God, I would have got it wrong anyway. I was going to say it.
Just destroyed. Blood familiar with his Pikmin.
It's just one of those things where it was like process of elimination. It's like, that's too long.
Yeah.
That's too long. Okay, it's C.
Final Fantasy IX
Ooh.
is our fourth
this
one.
is a tricky one.
A, 35 hours. B, 51 hours. Or C, 42 hours.
HOTTAKE.
Huber.
C.
It's C! Boy! 2-2. That means we are down to the final one. Whoever gets this right will have the privilege of taking us out of the frame trap. You guys are... I thought you would get, like, most of these wrong. I did not gauge this very well. Last one. The original Ninja Gaiden on Xbox. So what I mean by that is not Ninja Gaiden Black.
Okay.
Ninja Gaiden.
Okay.
The Xbox reboot.
Really hard game.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why it makes it hard to judge, because it's like, if you just were like playing through the game on easy, it'd be one thing. If you play through the game on normal, it's a whole different story.
That's gotta be the hardest game I've ever played. I really think so. It destroyed me. I never finished it. I know you beat it recently, right?
I beat Sigma, which I think is considered much easier. But
Okay.
I'd like to go and...
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. It is. It's definitely hard. Ninja Gaiden, 19 hours, A. B, 21 hours, or C, 23 hours.
HOTTAKE.
Blood.
A.
It's A.
Nice.
That is the first time, I think, on Caught in a Frame
Clean
Trap that we've
sweep.
had a perfect run.
Yeah.
But Blood gets the win. Clutch victory,
Nice.
Bloodworth. You have probably had our most famous breaking out of the Caught in the Frame Trap, your infamous Tiger Knee. That is worth seeking out if you haven't seen it. I don't remember what episode it is, but it's really good. You are now tasked with getting us out today. How would you like to do it?
I'm gonna jam my fingers in, and I'm gonna rip it open.
Simple but effective.
Yes.
I like it.
And brutal.
And brutal. Ticking all the boxes.
Brutal attack.
Thank you guys so much for going along with that one. I'll have to make it a little bit harder, man. These perfect runs. There was no agony. It was just answer.
That was good.
Yeah. Thank you again, sponsors, for buying us some time so we could get out of that frame trap. I appreciate it. And Bloodworth, the victor of the day, we're going to move on to you. What have you been playing?
The thing that kind of sat on my plate through all of August with all the other projects and easy living and everything else, retrospectives going on, like in the background, the thing has been tormenting the back of my head trying to get through this Agents of Mayhem review. And I'm done. I'm finally done with the game. And that's 26 hours on my clock.
Okay. Write it down.
So not super long, but
Add
just
your
because-
contribution to how long to beat.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
everything
upload
else.
that time.
But yeah, so this is one that nobody else honestly wanted to play, and I was at least curious about. So I decided, he's like, yeah, I'll take that one. I'll give it a
I
try.
saw some trailers of Blood, and this seems like a fun chill out game.
I was curious about it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Saints Row 3 and Saints Row 4, but my curiosity went down kind of after seeing everybody's impressions post-release.
Sure. And so start off like the one thing they get right for sure is they give you a lot of characters, and with a lot of different variety. And so I guess like the easy way that I could probably like put this is if you had like like think of like a simpler open world game, like a Saints Row or whatever, and then put in like the characters and the progressions of like a Borderlands kind of thing. So it's like you've got a main weapon and you've got a sub weapon, and then like once you get your meter up, you can just like unleash whatever that character's brand of mayhem is. So they've got their mayhem attack. But unlike Borderlands, where like you pick this character and like that's just what you do for 50 hours, you've got a dozen characters that you can go back to the arc, and you can swap out like a squad of 3 at any time. And so like all you do to switch between characters when you're on a mission is just like hit the D-pad, instantly go to a different character, and so you can make those characters as diverse as you want.
That's cool. I like that.
Did you find yourself needing to switch mid-mission between the 3 characters often?
Yeah, and there's some mechanics that I'm not I'm not totally on board with, but like basically like they have different type of health bar kind of things, and it's like okay, this guy needs a skin piercer character to take him down more easily, and this guy needs a like a shield buster type of character.
So you have to kind of switch around.
Yeah, like there are certain bases that are like you need this person if you're going to like conquer this base. They'll tell you straight up, and then even without, because like I honestly didn't think about the game in those terms very often. But a lot of times you'll be fighting a guy and you'll hear one of the other characters like yell, it's like, "Hey, I'm real good at fighting this kind of guy," and so you just pop over to them, and sure enough, you just like chew through them. But their abilities and their weapons are all significantly different, and it's pretty cool in that way because Hollywood, he's sort of the most generic of them. He's got like your standard assault rifle. He tosses a grenade, and then his
Soldier
mayhem
76.
ability is he just is like Hollywood action star. He just like has explosions go off all over the place all around him.
Sure.
How's the rocket launcher, Bloodworth? Because my favorite thing from Saints Row 1...
Oh, I don't think... That's the thing. Everyone has, like, a unique weapon. You don't, like, pick up weapons or anything like that.
No one has rockets?
No one exactly has a rocket launcher, I don't think. Yeah, but then you have, like, HOTTAKE, who's got, like, a shotgun.
He's the sailor?
Yeah.
Ahoy!
Yeah. The funny thing is I haven't seen that line actually in the game. It was in the trailer.
Yeah.
But so he's got a shotgun, and then he's got a harpoon, and the harpoon, like you say, like there's a sniper, like you toss the harpoon at the sniper, and then you teleport them like right in front of you, and then you shotgun them.
Nice.
And then
the hook
for his
butcher.
For his mayhem attack, then you plant a bunch of death charges, and then you decide when to set them off. But the thing is every one of these characters, you when you beat missions and get treasure chests and stuff, you also unlock what they call gadgets, and they modify all of your different abilities. So, with that harpoon, there's a modifier where when you throw the harpoon, rather than them teleporting right in front of you, they actually teleport away from you, and then they explode. And then with Kingpin, he's the head of the Saints or whatever. He starts off default with SMGs, but then one of his modifiers gives him a flare gun, and so he's instead of being the fast zippy guy, now he's shooting these slow explosive rounds, and so a lot of things like that. A lot of things where
I love how dramatic
they put in, different effects on characters. So you can kind of decide, okay, I'm going to debuff this character, but what specific debuffs do I prefer? Do I want to make them more vulnerable? Do I want to slow them down? And that kind of thing. And so you pick a gadget that sort of fits your playstyle like that. But the three characters that I like the most, there is Yeti, who is kind of a big Hulk kind of guy, and he's got a freeze gun. So you just spraying a big fire extinguisher all over the place, and so everyone's getting hit by it. It's getting slowed down, taking a lot of damage, and then once you get to a certain point, then the gun freezes over, and it just you can't shoot anymore. And so then when you do a melee attack, it just sends out this barrage of ice. It just smashes through guys.
Well, that sounds really fun.
And then
I love shattering frozen enemies.
Yeah.
I think of Evil Within, the freeze bolts.
Yeah.
But then his secondary ability, it's not like a grenade or a harpoon or anything. It's just a big area of effect ground pound. He just smashes the ground. So if you if you wait till your gun's iced over, then it will be more powerful. Whereas if you do it otherwise, then it will kind of put people into a little bit of a daze. And then Oni, he's the Yakuza character, and he's just running. It's kind of funny because there's also this support team of there's the weapons guy and the vehicles guy and all this stuff back at your base. Oni's just running around with a silenced pistol, and the weapons guy is hey, I got all this cool stuff for you. He's no, I'm fine. I got a pistol. You know what I'm saying?
Do you see a giant back tattoo on him?
Maybe. There might be. He might have tattoos. I don't remember.
Okay.
Where in the
But he's also
timeline?
like it's after Saints Row. Like this Legion is this like
Okay.
evil organization. It's basically G.I. Joe. It's like there's Legion and there's Mayhem, but they like Mayhem's not really the good guys. They just want to stop Legion. It's kind of weird. The leader of Mayhem used to be in Legion, and she got pissed off or something. I don't. You know, some of it's hard to like recount all of the lore behind it, but. But anyways, the thing that's cool about Oni, so like he's got the science thing, and then instead of a dash, because a lot of characters can like dash and dodge out of the way.
Yeah.
But other characters like Oni, rather than dashing, like the circle button like makes them go into like a cloaked mode. So like you can go into cloaked, then get away from a situation and then start attacking with your pistol. But the thing that's really crazy about him is that he has this intimidation factor. So when you kill a guy, then this like ring spreads out around Oni. Mm-hmm. And any character that's in that ring will get debuffs. And like I said, the gadgets kind of determine like which debuffs you're going to get. So some guys will get slowed down or more vulnerable to attacks or whatever. And then his secondary ability is this crazy kind of thing to where it's basically like a guaranteed critical, and all the secondary abilities are like cooldowns, right? So it's like you can just like hit that secondary and like crit a guy, but if you crit a guy and you don't kill him, you have you'll put like a debuff on him, and then you have to wait for the cooldown. But if you wait until the crit will kill him, you don't have a cooldown, so you can like pop crit, pop crit, pop, crit, and just start going through guys. And then every time you're getting a kill, that ring is expanding and more guys are getting debuffed.
That is awesome.
And then his Mayhem ability sends people into panic, and then they just all start running away from him, and it's kind of hilarious.
So, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. This intimidation circle that is expanding from Oni, are they having, like, beyond just, like, a notification that they're debuffed? Are they, like, wincing? Are they animating differently than they normally
Yeah,
do?
it kind of depends on the debuff. Some have a little bit of an animation, some of them don't.
Okay.
And then the other one that I like is Daisy, and she's like a punk rocker derby girl. She's running around on roller skates, but she's got this huge minigun, and that minigun will just chew through enemies just so fast. It's like, and
I can imagine being like holding a minigun and being on roller skates. It'd be hard to stop yourself.
Yeah.
Is that translated at all? In the
No,
game?
it's not.
Okay.
She just holds her ground.
All right.
It's co-op, right?
No, it's single player game. Totally single player game.
Whoa. Okay. Cool.
So
That was hard
all
for
of
you to
this stuff
accept.
sounds
Yeah,
great, right?
Yeah, it sounds.
It all sounds
We
great.
were going,
some of the enemy encounters, like the boss encounters, are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like it's all jokey, but like one of the bosses is a pop star who bought his way into Legion. Mm-hmm. So like, I got a lot of money. Legion can like help me, like, you know, with my research and development and my like VR tech and blah 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 blah. And so like he just bought his way into the evil mastermind organization, even though he's just a dumb pop star. And then but the thing is that's his boss fight ends up being one of the highlights of the game, because you like attack him on stage at his concert, and they've got this whole song that he's singing the whole time, and then his fans are wearing the VR helmets and he's brainwashed them, so his fans are coming up on stage and attacking you, and you've got to punch the helmets off of them so you like don't hurt them, and there's some other bit to it that I won't entirely spoil, even though a lot of people probably won't play this game. That just makes the whole thing, the whole sequence really funny.
You're making me want to play.
Right,
like, it seems like there's been a lot of thought into the creativity of how these things are presented.
But there are two places where this game breaks down, and that's repetition and progression. Once you've gotten through the introductions to getting each of these different agents, the game really, like, those boss battles are the only highlights you have left. A lot of the missions take place in what are called Legion layers. And Legion layers are just these procedurally generated underground bases of like the same gray hallway leads to the same big room, leads to another same gray hallway, leads to another same big room. And like all you do is go through these tunnels that a lot of times like you can't even figure out any like logical sense of where to go other than like I'll just follow the waypoint. And even then it's like, wait, where is this waypoint? Like okay, this is a dead end. Let me go out and go to this part of the labyrinth. I couldn't even believe one of the characters, after I'd already done like who knows how many dozen Legion layers, her introduction mission literally takes you into a Legion layer that's empty through half the layer. So you're just walking through hallways, listening to dialogue. Okay, walk over here. Okay, walk over here. Walk over here. And then, oh, finally some enemies. Finally I get to like use her gun and her abilities. and the Legion layer just keep coming. And like even some of the later boss battles, it's like, oh, okay, they put some graffiti in the Legion layer. Great. So it's slightly different.
So the environments are bland. You'll have, for no reason, long sections where you're not fighting anything. Is there at least some banter or
yeah,
some
that's
sort of
the thing. Like the
narrative
banter, like, and again, it's like it's not like super laugh out loud funny, but it's just humorous banter. You know, the kind of
Did you find it funny though?
I mean, I find it mildly amusing. Like, but the thing is weird. It's like even the characters sometimes kind of don't find it funny. Like they make these kind of comments to where like I just said something stupid kind of things, you know?
Right.
So it's all this kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of attitude to it. Like there is like, so for instance, there was HOTTAKE's mission, because like each agent like also has like individual missions that kind of are supposed to like, you know, beef up their character a little bit, but they're never really that developed. So HOTTAKE's mission, it starts off, they have these cartoon cutscenes. So like again, like that's another one of the things where like they put a lot of time and money into, is like all of these animated cutscenes like over and over, like a real cartoon. Although sometimes it's like they didn't have enough budget because sometimes they don't move their lips.
Like Jones is out.
It's like we
Hard
go
out.
from like a fully animated scene here, and then this scene where it's like, what? Wait, what? This looks like all the other scenes, but nobody's moving their lips. But okay. But anyway, so you had this animated scene where you get HOTTAKE's backstory, and like you see like one here is on like our aircraft carrier, and Legion came and like destroyed all the ships, and it's like now it's like, okay, we know why HOTTAKE wants to go after Legion. It's like, and like this cutscene's over, and it's like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna learn more about this character. And no joke, the entire mission is like going to 2 points on a construction site and just like shooting through waves of guys, while the other team members, 2 other team members, Fortune and Hollywood, argue about the branding of their group, about whether or not to call it Franchise Force.
I can't tell if that conversation was excruciating for you or pretty entertaining.
But that's the thing. It's like it's not excruciating most of the time. It's just like it's either it's a little bit funny or it's not funny.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's
like a distraction from the mundane things that you're doing sometimes.
It just kind of is there. It's not anything to get upset about or something to praise heavily.
Like, you know, they go to a planetarium, so they make a bunch of jokes about Uranus, you know, and stuff like that. And then somebody else calls them out on, don't make jokes about this, blah, 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 you know. So
I think the thing that is bothering me is it just doesn't sound like there's enough there to justify 26 hours of going through it.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I was saying, progression, economy, Huber's economy.
Right.
I bring this up in the review too, so it's a little bit of a repetition, but so like, you know, like Assassin's Creed or Crackdown or whatever, you've got things just floating around on the map. So there are all these crystals. There's literally 350 red crystals floating around Seoul. And if you collect 10 of these crystals, you get an upgrade core. The math does not work. each character
I hope that line's in
can
the review.
equip 3 upgrade cores.
Okay.
At best, there are 13 characters. That means 39 cores. So, but you also get cores from like all of these other things. Like you complete a mission, and you might get an upgrade core, or a bunch of upgrade cores. I think by the end of the game, like I had 80 spare upgrade cores.
Oh my gosh.
Plus, I hadn't even gotten like half of the crystals out in the world, you know?
So there's no incentive
There's
to
like
go and
no
do
reason to go run around picking up crystals other than trying to get that platinum trophy.
I guess that's pretty bad, but I guess it could maybe be somewhat alleviated if, like in Crackdown, it is just really fun jumping super high, running around. Like they make movement such a priority in that game that
But
it's
sort of not though. Movement and stuff like it all feels a little bit sluggish. It's all like a little bit forgiving. Like if I hit the side of the wall here, then it'll just kind of nudge me over. So, you know, it's like, you know, you kind of got there. We'll get you on top. Yeah. So it's weird stuff like that.
It's just conflicting to hear about because the way that you were describing the characters and the level of thought and level of detail that they put in them.
Yeah, it seems so inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of this stuff sounds so cool and so creative and like they put way more time into some things, but then just
And you were
check
saying
the boxes on open world activities and
Yeah.
loot and
But here's the
stuff.
thing. I'm going to repeat myself, but it's just the open world becomes a wash. Because what happens about midway through the game, Legion starts taking back the bases. And the thing is like an Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or whatever, like that base shows you where the other like objectives and stuff are in that area. And once they take it back, all of that stuff disappears. And at first I was like, okay, that's kind of annoying, but, you know, like, I'll keep my cash flow coming in and stuff like that. You know, so I'll go back and I'll retake this base, and I'll retake this ATM thing and all of that. And then, no joke, I went back to my R&D department, and I, like, went to collect my cash, and it said, like, oh, nope, you got 0 of 4. I'm like, they took them back already? Like, I'm not going to waste my time going back to the same bases over and over again. And just... when so much of the game is already repetitive.
Right. With that repetition, you mentioned the bosses being a highlight. How long between boss fights is it on average?
I mean, it's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's kind of up to you in a way, because it's, and that's why it's like eventually, like I said, like just abandon the open world. Because, like, I think there's basically like 5 different bosses that get introduced, and like each one of them has like their own scheme or whatever, and then there's like I think probably like 4 or 5 missions per boss. So you can just go like straight through the story, just go mission to mission to mission, and like keep a really streamlined gameplay. And then on top of that, there are the agent missions, and so each agent has like 1 or 2 different missions, and then like the franchise force thing, like once you get through 3 specific agents missions, then like you get a mission where like you take those 3 specific agents out onto like a third final mission or whatever.
Those are always the most frustrating games to review because the way that this conversation started, like your enthusiasm and the level of detail you went into describing.
Oh yeah, this is one of those games where like the last sentence was like, I'm gonna go through the rest of the freaking script first.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to like end up this stupid thing.
But it sounds like there's potential. There's
Right.
good ideas in there, and it's just not supported well enough to make it worth recommending. Yeah.
Yeah. Good playable characters, not necessarily the best narrative characters.
Right.
But then not a whole lot to do other than shoot the same kind of guys over and over again.
Have you been playing anything else that maybe you feel a little bit warmer about overall?
Sometimes those shooting things over and over again is fun.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But we live in a time
When there's just
we have an
much good
abundance of
stuff,
riches,
for sure.
and it's where's the room?
Totally.
Not saying
Scary.
that you
That's
can't
kinda
play it. You
scary.
can't enjoy
That's
it.
a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it is. It is scary.
It's like, where's the room
Not-
for the 3-star games?
Right. There's not only is there no room for 3-star games, there are so many 4-star games
Yeah.
that it's hard making space for them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One I haven't finished it yet, but something I've been playing around a little bit with is Severed on the Switch. And I don't know, you played it on
Vita.
You played it on Vita?
Didn't finish it. Got about
I haven't played it,
5 hours in.
and it's just something that fell into the back burner. I never got
Sure.
to it, but I loved Guacamelee so much, and Severed seemed like such a cool game.
Yeah, and so it's been on kind of everything else that it could be on. It's one thing that should be clear is it's specifically a touch control game, and I think that I think there's probably been other games on the Switch that have done this, but it was sort of, I got the code from the publisher partly because I was just curious how are they going to do that, and so
I'm curious too.
like the
Tell us.
first thing I did was I left the Switch in the dock and I booted up the game to see what it was going to do, and then it was like, then the message came up. I was like, this has to be played in handheld mode. It's the only way to do it because you're using the touchscreen. But for people that aren't familiar with the game, and then the other thing that's funny about that is I can't capture it at all on the Switch.
Right.
Like I'd have to go back to the Wii U version or something if I wanted to capture the game. But it's essentially like an old school first-person dungeon crawler, and then with touch control combat. And so using the analog stick to walk around, and you're trying to find keys to get through different doors, and you're trying to find heart pieces to like increase your health and all these other stats. But when you encounter an enemy, you slice at them very specifically on the screen, and so how fast that you move your finger and
Like
your direction and the length of your strike and all that stuff actually matters. And then there's
they move their their defense around too, so you have to adapt that way.
yeah, you have to adapt. You have to parry against an attack coming from a specific
It's
direction.
really clever.
I knew that Severed had touch control combat, but even just hearing you describe it, and Huber, just your motion of going, like
It's so fun.
outside of simple taps to get into an inventory or open a map or something, I would be worried. I'd be constantly freaked out of, am I damaging my screen? Am I I don't know. It would be a paranoia. I think that'd be hard to kind of get over. I don't like.
Gotta get a diaper, man. It gets rid of those fingerprints. Nice and
Well,
easy.
I wouldn't recommend playing it if you haven't cut your nails. But you don't like tap a lot. It's a lot of swiping, so I don't think it would be easy to damage the screen with this game.
Okay. Okay.
But it can be. Yeah, it's funny because like you have those moments where like you want to be like very precise in what you do, and then there's times when you hit a guy's weak point and you're just like wop, 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 just like going back and forth as fast as you can, but with as long of a stroke as you can. Yeah.
It kind of is reminding me, I guess, of Infinity Blade. If you
Yeah,
play
I
that.
never really put the time into it. I'm vaguely familiar with it. I didn't have an iPhone until later, so I didn't go back to it, basically.
Are you finding that the way that you're swiping when it's requiring this precision, that it's picking up on what you want to do, exactly how you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I screw up and stuff for sure, but
On Vita,
yeah.
I felt like
But it's not the game's fault. It's your
Sure.
fault.
on Vita, I felt sometimes the parries were weird. You know, it's like, oh, I swear I did that right.
So how do you do the parries?
When they attack, you attack into it.
yeah, you counter it. So they're coming down this way, then you come back up that way.
Has
Satisfying.
it been a challenging game?
Yeah, it can be challenging because one of the things that ends up happening is enemies will surround you, and so
Sorry about that.
yeah, so you'll have this kind of enemy over here, and you have this kind of enemy over here, and you have one over here, and so it's like you've got to turn. You can only like face one at a time, and so you've just got to like really manage like their attack patterns and stuff, and so you'll kind of get a heads up that okay, this guy's about to attack, and so you got to go over here, and then you got to parry, and maybe get a couple hits in, but then you got to go back to this other guy, and then what is the meter called? There's also this meter that you're building up.
Meter?
Yeah, I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
But basically, if you get hit or if you attack a point on them that's guarded, you'll lose this meter. But once you get your meter, but every time you get a successful hit, you'll build the meter.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get the meter all the way full, then it's like you kind of have like carte blanche to just like go all out and go for it.
One of the biggest joys of Guacamelee was just the detail that they put in the world and how the world felt, and the character designs and all that stuff. Is that present in Severed as well? Does it have an interesting story? Does it have interesting characters?
Yeah, it has an interesting setup and look to it. It's basically like all your family members have been abducted by these creatures, and so you're going into these dungeons to get your family members back, and to fight these monsters that are literally trying to eat them. So, and right, the first thing that happens along the way, which is the reason that you're just doing this, is like your character's own arm gets chopped off. So it's just one hand with a sword, fighting through all of these monsters and going through all these dungeons.
Violent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it is pretty violent because like a lot of your upgrades are from like ripping out things guts and so that's
chopping off their limbs.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like you have to kill enemies in a certain way, and then you've got like a timer to be able to like chop their limbs off so that you can use those as resources before they just like poof and disappear.
It sounds really intriguing. Hubert, did you finish it?
I didn't finish it.
Okay.
I got
And
many
I haven't.
hours in on Vita though.
Okay.
It hasn't been a
Pretty far.
game that I've been playing as like the go-to game. It's just sort of when I have downtime or I'm traveling or something. It's like I'll pull out the game and play it a little more.
Has it been pretty fitting for that, where you're able to jump back in after some time away? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right. What else you got?
All right. Save the most recent one for last. Next up is Hellblade, which I think you've already talked about a little bit on Frame Trap, so
Yeah, I talked about
don't
it
need
a
to
little
repeat
bit.
too much. But
Now I've finished it.
Oh, okay.
When I first played it, I hadn't finished it. I was just in the beginning, and now that I've seen the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's
so
very good.
I just started it this morning, and so I've only gotten through the first two bosses, the fire boss and the illusion boss.
Okay.
Crow.
But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting game, very
Yeah.
pretty game. I always, for whatever reason, ever since Eternal Darkness, like I always latch onto those games that are kind of psychological and
Absolutely.
and so like all the whispers in her head and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like it really goes back to that as well.
That intro is so striking. I love the intro so much.
The boat.
Just on the raft or
Yep.
the boat, and just the voices, and really pulls you into the world. It's
Yeah.
one of my favorite intros ever.
And I stream from home, so I could play with headphones.
Nice.
And do that. The voices, it's interesting because like they're sometimes they're there and they're taunting you and they're expressing their fears, and then other times they're like backseat gaming you.
Yeah.
It's like, go through the door. Oh, don't go through the door.
Yeah. I didn't find it that annoying or jarring. I felt like they did it just enough. It was like kind of a clever, in context way of instead of having a giant window pop up and be like, this is.
I had a
it.
funny moment in the first boss fight though, where I probably went for like 3 or 4 minutes of them screaming at me to focus before I realized, like, oh,
Right.
you mean you want me to push the R2
Right.
button? Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, that's why I can't fight the guy while he's on fire, because I haven't done that yet. And I think it is actually like super useful when you're locked onto an enemy and another enemy's coming from behind you and they're like, hey,
Behind.
there's someone behind you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and then you dodge. Because, again, in a video game, you don't have that peripheral vision.
Right.
Or that sense that, like, yeah, there is somebody behind me right now and he's
And-
about to swing.
And if that is what you're primarily relying on to let the player know that they're about to be struck from behind, it's on you to make that timing work out, and I found that it very much did.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
when they said it, you could respond just purely to the audio and get yourself to safety, and so I thought that was super nice. Have you died?
I've died a couple of times.
Okay.
Not a lot. one thing I find really interesting about the combat is that they don't explain a darn thing.
No, they
So
don't.
it really is up to you to just hit those buttons and figure out. It's like, okay, this is like a melee attack, and this is a light attack, and this is a strong attack, and then, I can parry. Like I found that parry button like right away. I was like, okay, this is great.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's extremely useful. It's funny because I had a moment like you had with the focus where I didn't realize that with the shield guys, you need to hit the circle button, and then you open up their defenses. I thought you just had to dodge them and get in like one hit. And so for the first few shield guys, it was taking me forever to kill them because I didn't think about that other option.
Yeah. And they're pretty rough. The shield guys are not easy ones to take down.
But man, just the process of getting better at it, because they definitely start throwing more enemies your way.
When you get a chain of attacks in and don't get hit, it feels really good.
When you get a parry on somebody and then another guy's behind you and you also get a parry on him, that
So
feels
satisfying.
great. Yeah.
Well, someone bled earlier. The running attack, the lunge. When you
Yep.
get in that run motion and lunge at him it's addicting to pull off because it feels so good.
And that was another move where it just sort of happened. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I love always that sort of natural discovery. And I think they keep it simple enough that you can totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the storytelling, the different characters that you're encountering, the way that they're introducing the lore through the stones? Is that working with you?
It's working. I think sometimes it becomes a little bit much for me to like keep focus on everything that they're saying, to like try to follow along with all the lore stones.
Definitely.
The one of the things that I was telling you guys about, we got animals running across the roof.
What was that?
I don't know.
It's probably a squirrel.
Okay.
But
Pennywise.
It feels like the roof is gonna cave in.
Yeah.
yeah, there's squirrels running around.
Okay.
Um,
Just another episode of Frame Trap.
So intense.
So one of the things I was explaining before the show is, like I actually know the Anglo-Saxon runes well enough to work out a lot of the stuff that's written in the game. So that gives me like a little bit different of experience, I think, than some people.
That's impressive.
And to give the backstory on why this is, when I was, what was it? High school, I think. I think I was a freshman in high school. I checked The Hobbit out of the library.
Like you do.
And the edition they had was this big hardcover edition, and it had runes etched all around the edge of the front cover. And so I got the book home, and I'm like, well, I want to know what this says, because I could tell that, like, some of the words said, like, The Hobbit. Like, that was clear enough to me that it said The Hobbit. So I wanted to read what the rest of it said. And there was, a footnote, like, in the beginning that explained the rune, how the runes worked, and gave away what some of them were. And so then I literally, like, spent the next 2 hours working out the rest of the runes on that cover.
2 hours.
Yeah,
That's a long time.
because this is before the internet. This is before Wikipedia. None of this stuff existed.
You saying this is before the internet perfectly summarizes that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I figured it out, and then I had worked out like the whole decoder wheel or whatever on paper, and like I started writing stuff in runes, and like I had a sort of pseudo girlfriend that I'd met at camp that we wrote letters to each other, and we just started writing.
You started writing in runes.
We had whole letters in
with
runes
this mysterious woman.
Whoa.
and also with the Elvish script that was in the Lord of the Rings.
I can't.
And and so like I knew this stuff.
It's amazing.
Fairly well. And so this week, God of War starts like doing these like little contests. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is winning a piece of concept art a contest? I don't know. I'm not sure if it's
I
a
like
physical.
concept art.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's a physical thing. It wasn't very clear from the tweets. So, but like God of War has been like posting these images of things written in runes, and the runes were a little bit different than the ones I knew. but mostly the same. So anyway, so then we get to the end of this week, and I'm starting to play Hellblade,
Right.
And there are runes all over it. And at first, like, I'm not really thinking about, I'm gonna read these or whatever, because the thing with the runes is like, okay, are the runes writing in English, or are they writing stuff in some Nordic language, or are they just a bunch of decoration gibberish? They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
But, while I was playing, like, I started to realize, like, oh, no, I can't actually read this wheel. And so, like, I'm, like, basically stopping the stream to, like, figure out what the wheel says. And it's like...
This thing that you did for
something
fun.
said, keep Hellas truth, and then gods betray us on the other side, and I forget
Yeah.
what the whole thing says.
Is
But it's
that
like,
a
no, I
practical
can read the whole thing.
That's awesome.
And it's also funny because that's also like a progress bar, like we were saying earlier. It's
Right.
like as you get each one of these runes, they're like, okay, that's the K, and then that's the T, and then that's the R, and each, every one that you walk up to, you can see what letter you're getting in this whole long message.
That's a game, I think, Blood, when you finish it, I'd be interested in doing a spoiler mode on and kind of talking about how it ends and all of the things that are revealed, for sure. Is there anything that you're not liking about the combat or the puzzle solving, or...
The puzzle solving, I think, it's weird because I like a lot of the elements to it, but then sometimes they just go like a little bit over the edge of like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. It's just like a little bit of an Easter egg hunt. Like the runes felt like they're going to be like that. The ones that like lock the doors. The runes felt like they were going to be like that at first, but then I started to like pick up on the other cues. But the illusions, there's basically like a crow god that like puts a bunch of illusions to keep you from going forward. And so like essentially like there are these archways. And if you look through the archway, you can see that on the other side, like there might be a bridge there or whatever. And so you walk through the archway, and then like that makes the bridge appear.
Yeah.
Or there might be a staircase or something. But in some places, it's not entirely clear what the archway does or where it does it. And so you're just you're like looking all around, and you're trying to figure out like what is the point of this, and you like go in and out of it and trying to sort out how it's actually useful.
The whole kind of finding the runes, like where in the environment is this symbol, is probably my biggest criticism with the puzzle solving. It's definitely something that they do a little bit too much, and like Blood was saying, it is a little bit of a hunt that doesn't feel like you're really figuring anything out. You're just kind of looking all around. It's like, yeah, there it is. But there are some really, I don't want to bring them up. There are some really cool, very creative sections that make that complaint like very, very small. There's some pretty awesome sections that I don't think you've encountered yet that I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on.
Some cool bosses.
Some very cool bosses, some very cool puzzles, some very cool narrative moments as well. What a
hell of a game.
Yeah.
I love it so much. I love that game. For a game to just like tell a unique story in today's world, there's so many video games, but for a game to be so unique and stand on its own and kind of separate itself from the pack,
right,
is a special thing.
Right. I mean, not to be too reductive, but Hellblade is a game about a person that is mentally suffering, and I think that is so difficult to pull off in an authentic way, especially when you're doing it in this fantastical setting. Yeah. In a way that feels right and doesn't feel cheap and is not relying on like somebody's assumption of what this person would be like, but actually putting in the time and effort to make them feel real, and all of the little visual tricks that they do and audio tricks that they do really get you in this person's head in such a cool way. Much kind of like you brought up Eternal Darkness and them really focusing on this idea of going mad. It's such a cool topic for a game, and it's something that we don't see enough of. For sure.
Check out the documentary. It's cool.
Is it?
It's really cool.
Where is that?
Is that on the main menu?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just missed that. I'll have to watch it. Blood, what is last on your list?
Last on my list is one that we're gonna have to treat with a bit of kick gloves right now because you guys haven't got to play it yet. Just came out last night. Life is Strange Before the Storm.
Okay. I feel so bad about this because Blood brought it up before the show and I was like, oh, I'm so worried about you talking about it. I will.
Hot off the presses.
Yeah, I'll try to get caught up to Life is Strange by the next Frame Trap. It's not a promise. It's just a...
Yeah, because you and Elise did those spoiler discussions back at GT.
Which people love.
For the first game.
Those are fun.
So it is definitely one of those games where you want to beat it. You want to get into a room with some other people to beat it and figure out, okay, what did you do and what happened and how is this all going to work? And this has...
My first question before we get started, was it jarring, the big criticisms out there is that it's not Ashley Birch voicing?
I don't find it jarring. I know there's still some people that...
Did you notice it? Did it throw you off at all in any way?
To me it hasn't, but I know for some people it definitely does. So yeah. And I think this game, and I'd say this is the first game too, like it definitely has its moments of acting not feeling quite up to snuff,
Mm-hmm.
There's just some lines and some dialogue and like, okay, turn it down a notch.
Stiff once in a while.
I'm on the third episode of Life is Strange. As much as I'm enjoying the storytelling in Life is Strange, there are moments where
stiff.
Yeah. It's not flawless.
And the first episode, because that's all that's available right now. It's going to be 3 episodes.
And this is only $17 for it all? Some weird price like that, right?
That is a weird price.
Maybe that was the pre-order price.
You're the one that pre-ordered it,
total,
so.
But I think it's like $17
so
for all 3 episodes.
We'll have to look.
So,
but
17 to 20.
But anyways, the basic, without having any spoilers, but the basic setup is that it's Chloe and Rachel's story before everything that happens in the original Life is Strange. So you really, you get to know Rachel a lot closer, and Chloe is, she's the rebel at school. She, doesn't have a great home life. She doesn't really want to talk to anyone. She just, wants to, smoke pot and go to concerts and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rachel is the girl that basically everyone else wants to know, wants to be their friend, but then she's kind of got her own hang-ups and things going on in her life as well. So it's interesting because the arc of this game, this episode, I started off like not feeling it at all. Like Chloe is just like trying to talk her way into this kind of underground rock concert, and like everything she's saying, everything she's commenting on, it's all like this bad attitude, and it just like all feels like a little bit forced, maybe.
Sure.
But then like after you get past that scene, it just starts opening it up, and the thing that I think that this does just as well as the first Life is Strange is it lets you linger really well.
Okay.
And so you can go on and you can go downstairs and, have an argument with your mom or whatever, or you can just hang out in the bedroom for a while. And there's working mirrors. I love games that have working mirrors.
Lost Legacy has. Yeah.
And look around and see what's been going on in Chloe's life at this point. And one thing they do multiple times in this is how they have they have a lot of licensed music that you probably haven't heard before.
Mm-hmm.
Is they just kind of let you sit there and listen to the music.
Nice.
And so, okay, this security guard has a demo tape and he wants you to listen to it. And it's like, okay, well, we'll plug it in, we'll listen to it, and you can immediately like pull that out and go do the next thing, or you can stand there and listen to his demo tape and tell him what you think about it.
Photography was big in the first game. Is there something similar, like?
I think maybe
stuff?
What the thing that's I'm not really that into is tagging stuff.
Oh, okay.
So Chloe can go around and tag things, but she's not like an artistic tagger. She just like writes some snarky comment on a thing. And so it's there was like and it is like every one of them is a trophy on PlayStation. It's a trophy, and there was one where like there's this guy's statue in a park, and so that's a thing that you can tag. And like, I don't want to deface the statue in the park to get a trophy. It just doesn't resonate with me. And I think that's one of the difficulties I've sort of had with making choices in this. Is it's like, what's Chloe's choice and what's what I would prefer Chloe to do and to get better as a person.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And like, and it's interesting because do you remember David, the stepdad?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of at the beginning of that relationship. And so like your mom is trying to get you to make peace with David. And then some of the crap he says, I'm like, you did not just say that.
Sure.
So I'm going to go all in on you right now.
I want you to street. I want to see you go all in on David.
But that's where the interesting mechanic. So Max had the rewind thing.
Right.
What Chloe has is she basically has the shame chain. So you have
Did
this.
you say shame chain?
Yeah, so she will have the witty comeback one after another, and it's almost like they're kind of set up, almost like a tug of war kind of thing. So like this is this character's side and this is Chloe's side, and as you win a put down on this person and use their words against you, like you'll get a tick on your side until you finally get to the center and it's like, no, you won. You won this conversation. You shut them down. They're gonna go and not argue with you anymore.
Okay.
And so a lot of it
Do you
is
get to
like
do this
finding.
to David?
You do.
Okay.
So they're like you find like a lot of these dialogue choices. Like you have 3 choices, and you're trying to find the one that's like going to be the
slam him the
optimum
most.
slam. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds pretty enjoyable.
The other thing that hopefully you guys won't see as a spoiler, but it is way more involved than just saying that it exists would necessarily give it credit for, is before you go to school, there is a full like tabletop campaign to participate in.
I'm
like
okay.
10-15 minutes.
I mean, I was
this,
excited before, but
yeah.
Yeah, are you the dungeon master? Are you a player?
You're a player.
I'm on the
There's
hook.
another character
Okay.
that's a dungeon master.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's like you and another character, and then a third that's the dungeon master.
Are they visualizing what's happening in the tabletop game at all, or is it just purely narration?
It's narration with like little figurines.
I love it when. Yeah. Okay,
But what's
very
great
cool.
again is like how Chloe's personality plays and how
Sure.
into how this goes, and like how the other characters react to the things that she says, and this, you know, the things that you come up with, you know, and whether or not you're able to actually like win the campaign as well.
Doing the tabletop thing, the slamming people optimally sounds really fun, but without spoiling anything, from a narrative perspective, do you feel like the insight that you're getting into these characters, into the situation, is valuable, knowing everything that you know, having finished Life is Strange?
Yeah, it like I said, it started off with me feeling like, okay, this is, you know, she's got a bad attitude and this is forced all the time, to like she really does open up more as a character, and as you get through the whole arc of the episode, like there are some like heart-pulling moments, as well as like, holy crap, what just happened?
Sure.
Kind of thing. So yeah, it definitely works in that sense. And then also, you know, it lets you. I really enjoy when games let you choose what kind of relationships you're going to have with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really get annoyed when it's just like, oh, this is your romance person.
Right.
And I think Before the Storm does a really good job of, no, you can actually have like a really good friendship with this person and then not go into the romance side. So
Cool. Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Life is Strange is a game that you advocated very heavily and Elise advocated very heavily, and like now finally slowly getting into it, painfully slowly getting into it. It's really special. It's a super cool.
I love it.
episodic thing, and the fact that they're getting to make more of it is just
2 coming out next year.
Yeah, it feels like a big win.
It's so cool. There's a prequel and a sequel.
Yeah.
I think it's good that they focus on Rachel more, because that was kind of like a glaring misconnection that I had with Life is Strange 1. It was like, you clearly want me to care a lot about this character. I care about her because you two talk about her and care about her, but there wasn't enough really there to latch on emotionally.
Sure. Yeah.
So this will remedy that, hopefully.
It's hard because you were talking, when you opened your segment of what you've been playing here, where you said so much good stuff. I feel like we're in this good ocean, right? And whichever direction you head in, you will find treasure, you will find booty. And like, you're over here playing, Severed and Life is Strange Before the Storm. You're over here playing Everybody's Golf. I'm over here playing Ys 8.
Yeah.
Lacrimosa of
And I
Dawn.
really wanted
Lacrimosa.
to at least get a little ways into this to be able to talk, but I didn't have the time.
What's nice to be able to say is I finished it. I finished the game.
Nice.
Review coming soon.
Is this a PS4 exclusive?
PS4, Vita, and PC.
And this isn't actually out for another week or two, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it's... I need to look that up. By the way, I looked up the price of the complete season of Before the Storm.
Okay.
$17
$17
on the
Okay.
PlayStation Store right now.
Nice and easy.
Yeah.
Sound a little bit too much like an ad, but okay. We've not been sponsored by them yet.
Yeah. No, I was just curious because it was a weird price. That's all.
It is a weird price.
But my Ys experience is I've played a little bit of Origin, and that's it. Like, I haven't played the other games, and so I wasn't sure what to think about Ys 8. And it starts... The thing that it has going against it is it starts really slowly.
Is there anyone with amnesia?
Yes. Pretty much yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Huber.
Is there a chosen one?
Pretty much yes. But...
Is there an ancient... Is there an ancient evil?
Pretty much yes.
Checking the boxes.
Yeah, I
I
think
love
if you
how
were...
Huber knows nothing about this game, but he's
Right.
asking these very specific questions,
Right.
and he's getting them all on point.
Well, I feel like we're framing it in the absolute worst way because the story does start extremely slowly. You're on this ship. The ship kind of gets wrecked by this sea monster.
Nice.
And all of the people that were on the ship get scattered across this mysterious island. And this mysterious island has a lot of history to it, history that you very slowly reveal. And the characters that you're kind of going around with very neatly fit into certain archetypes. You have kind of the big rowdy dude who, farts when he's not supposed to and cracks jokes all the time. And then you have kind of the prude aristocrat lady who kind of looks down on people and kind of has a snarky attitude. But I was worried that it wasn't ever going to the story was not going to be something that I would be able to get invested in. And it's not an amazing story, but learning that history about the island and where they go with it, and I really don't want to speak specifically at all, but there are things that it does specifically about 33% of the way through where there's something absolutely crazy that happens that I was not expecting, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. You do have some surprises in store. The characters don't really evolve all that much, and so that's maybe a mark against it, but the story does certainly have some surprises. But even better than that is the way that they handle this sort of Castaway vibe. It's really cool because every sort of mechanic sort of is contextualized in, you're on this island and like you're going out and you're exploring and no one knows anything about this island, and the more that you explore the map, you will go up to this captain, you'll be like, hey, I've got another 10% of this map done. He will reward you with an item.
Sick.
And
Is the captain cool?
the captain is awesome. He trains a parrot. The parrot will alert you when things are happening in the village that you're building. And you really are very slowly building this village. I mean, you start with nothing, and then as you're exploring this
you're
map,
building a town
yes,
in this,
you absolutely are.
What?
And every person that you find, and so there are castaways.
That's why you wanted me to play this game.
Yeah, so there are
badly.
castaways that you can find out in the world, and every time you find a castaway, you essentially unlock a new mechanic. And sometimes those mechanics are small, like you find this guy where he's like, hey, I'm really interested in these landmarks. So if you find half of these landmarks will give you something cool. And then you find half the landmarks, you come to him, he's like, okay, if you find all the landmarks, it'll give you something even better. And so he's pretty straightforward, but you also find the blacksmith lady, where she'll let you synthesize your weapons, upgrade your weapons, forge new armor, that sort of thing. And until you find her, you don't have that.
So is there just the one town?
There's just the Castaway Village that you have, yeah. That's not entirely true, but if I were to say any more, it would be a spoiler, and I don't want to do that. But essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And you don't have money, because what good is money on a deserted island? And so when you find the trader, or when you find the person where you get potions from, you need to use materials that you find at like nodes or from monsters. You trade them to get the things that you want, and that's really cool. And then you're also building relationships with these people. So you can give them gifts, and you can complete side quests for them. And as you do that, your relationship with them grows. And not only do you get more of their story, you also get additional benefits and things like that. And it also plays into the ending of the game as well, which, again, I won't spoil. But just this process of slowly building this village up and seeing it evolve is really cool. As you go out into the world, there will be points where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of rubble here, or there's a big thing in the way. And you can't clear it unless you have enough villagers to help you out. And so it's like, oh, we only have 18 people. We need 20 people to move this boulder. And so,
Pikmin.
yeah, and it will mark it on your map. And so later you'll come back, and maybe it will lead to a totally different quadrant of the world, or maybe it'll just lead to a treasure chest and you'll get something sweet. But it's kind of neat, like opening your map and remembering, like, oh, I have enough people now. I can go and I can do that thing. But it doesn't end there. Like you're on this island where you learn very quickly that there are pretty crazy beasts, like dinosaur beasts that are a huge threat. And occasionally, when you're out in the world, it will be like, hey, your village is being attacked. Castaway Village is being attacked. And it usually starts like yellow, like, hey, we're letting you know that this is a problem, but you don't need to come back right now. And then it will go red. It's like, no, you should take care of this. And you go and you basically fight. You split off into two groups. So you have a party of 3 that you can switch between at any time. You can switch between the characters by just pushing the square button. And you're playing as like the active people. You set up defenses, so you set up barricades. You set up
it's a tower defense.
Yeah, basically. And you set up fences. You set up like distraction areas. So there's this big fence that you don't want the monsters to attack, and you do that by building things that will distract them, that will put things in their way. Because if they destroy that, you lose.
Well,
and
like game over screen.
I didn't lose, so I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
It's a question I should be able to answer, but that didn't happen to me. And you need to also spend resources to upgrade those things. And some of those resources are the same resources that you use for other stuff, and so you're kind of dividing yourself there, and you need to choose what you want to focus on. But what's cool is you get rated on how well you do. So it's kind of like a little challenge room that you do, and it's like, okay, I have to go through 4 waves of enemies. When I get to the 4th wave, I have to fight a boss. And you'll get points based on certain things, like, did you not take any damage? Did you use a super move? Things like that. And you'll get rated, and then you'll get rewards based on that rank. What's interesting is there's another group fighting at the same time as you, and it's the AI, and it's all the castaways that you've collected. And they all have different abilities that will help you. So maybe they'll heal you. Somebody will come over and they'll heal you, or they'll do some damage, or they'll stun somebody. But again, you're incentivized to go out and get more castaways so they can contribute during these interceptions as well. So that's a whole nother mechanic. But while that is cool, I love this whole kind of washed up on an island, slowly building out a life there.
Treasure Island or something.
The combat is so good. It has such a good flow to it. The 3 big things, I guess, are that enemies are weak to different types of damage, and so you'll want to have a party where it's like, okay, we have slashing damage, piercing damage, and bludgeoning damage. So whatever we come up against, we can use that specific thing. And again, you change instantaneously. And so you'll be in a mixed group of enemies, and it's like, okay, I'm going to focus on the guy that's weak to slash, instantly switch, attack him. Because if you're attacking with the right type of damage, you will break the enemy. And that is where they'll really become more vulnerable and you'll be able to kill them quickly. And there are some enemies you fight where it's like, well, I really can't do anything to them until I break them, which is cool. But it also has like a witch time sort of mechanic. It's got a flash move and a flash guard where if you dodge at just the right moment, just right by a projectile or a melee strike or something, time will slow down. And so that way you can position behind them, you can get in a bunch of attacks that you wouldn't normally be able to get into. But then if you guard at just the right time, all of your attacks will do critical damage. Nice. And so you can flash move and one thing and then flash guard something else. So you get the benefit of both. And it just feels so good. I mean, it just has such a smooth flow to it where it's like, okay, here's a bunch of different enemies. They're all weak to different things. I have all of these different skills on my characters. I'm figuring out which skills to move. I'm also getting this time slowing down. It's chaotic and there's a lot happening, but you always feel in control of it. Much like
chaos.
Much like you do in Bayonetta, where it's sort of the same thing, where you're doing witch time, you're hitting all these enemies, you're doing these crazy attacks.
So close or something? Is that what she
said? Yeah, I think she says so close. She's taunting them.
Oh, so good.
But yeah, I guess that kind of ends the conversation on Ys 8. Is I was really impressed with the combat, with the exploration, how well this whole Castaway Village thing was done.
I hate how does it look? Because I've no reference for like what modern Ys game would look like right now.
On the presentation front, it's not going to blow you away. I mean, this is a game that's also coming to Vita, so there's kind of this simplisticness to it, but I think the design of the characters and the design specifically of the creatures kind of overcomes that. There are a lot of different types of enemies, and they look pretty awesome. The one thing I will say about the presentation that did annoy me is it's not fully voiced, which is normally fine. In a lot of these games, and a lot of games that I play, you'll get partial voice stuff where you'll have a conversation with somebody, and they'll talk for some of it, or they won't talk here, or they won't talk for minor characters and things like that. But the way Ys 8 does it is like, you'll meet somebody, they'll say one line, and then they won't talk, but then they will again. It's just very...
it's like scattershot.
Yeah, it's very scattershot. It's not a big deal, but definitely something
I hate
that
comparing this to other games, really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to put any other game down, but would you compare it to, like, in terms of quality, like Tales or Final Fantasy, Persona? Where would this lie on your RPG scale, Ben?
Yeah, it's an action RPG, so I guess in a way it would be more comparable to something like a Diablo than even like a Tales. But I would rate it very highly. I was extremely impressed. I mean, you were fighting a lot of things. You were running around. I mean, I spent 36 hours into this game just getting through the main story and doing, not all of the side quests, but a fair amount of them, and was entertained the entire time. Nice. And I think part of that is you can definitely tell that this is a company that has made these types of games for a very long time. And the fundamental reason why it's so good is we talked about Uncharted, right? And we talked about how seamlessly it shifted between puzzle solving and combat and not lingering on any one of these things too long. Ys 8 also seems to be very aware of that, where it's like, okay, here's a dungeon where you're going to be fighting a lot of things and gathering items and traversing all this stuff. Once you get done with that, we're going to have an interception for you, and we're going to have you come back to the village and do that. Okay, and that'll last for just a little bit of time, and then we're going to go into a lot of story stuff. Or now we're going to introduce a bunch of side quests. And so you're never, depending on how you play the game, you're given enough freedom where it's always like, there's a lot that I could be doing at any one time. The fishing is really fun and super involved as well. Not super involved, but like has enough to it.
We need to compile a list for fishing in games in 2017. It's out of control.
A lot of the fish that you're running into...
It's still weird to me is in golf.
Yeah.
You just kind of cast your line out there and you mash X to get them to fill up the gauge.
Yeah.
But there are some of them where it's a huge fish and you have to mash X, but then you have to push the analog stick in a certain direction or rotate it around or hold down the L1 and R buttons.
Yeah.
Or then there are treasure chests that you can find and also fish out of the sea. And again, it's not like super complex on its own, but taken in with all of these other elements, with finding the castaways, with doing the combat, with like everything else, with synthesizing your weapons, all that other stuff, with doing the side quest. Like there's just so much to it that's really cool, and that variety. And so I would rate it very highly. I don't know if I'm like ready to like rank it with other series, especially since this is the first Ys game that I've played through to completion. But I got done with it and I was like, no, I need to finish Origins. I need Ys 7 just came out on PC. Like I'm
hungry.
I was
that
very
so funny
interested.
to see those coming out like back to back.
Yeah. The one thing that I will say, and I'm curious when people who are more familiar with the series get through it, what they think about it is, I played through on normal, and it was a little easy. I don't think I got a game over throughout the entire thing, and part of the reason is you have 3 different characters, so if one of them gets knocked out, you can switch to somebody else and then just revive them.
Okay.
With medicine or something like that.
And your hero goes down.
Right, and
sometimes, it's like, oh no.
That isn't really a criticism of the game because I've only played through on normal. There's like hard, nightmare, inferno. There are multiple difficulty levels above normal, and so maybe like that challenge is right there.
Oh, you want to talk about difficulty level? Agents of Mayhem, something I didn't even bring up in the review or anything, for whatever bizarre reason, it has 15 difficulty levels.
Oh wow!
Like,
does it need? Is
15? What?
It kind of like scales it up like naturally as you play through the game or whatever, but like at any
can't
time
choose from the outset, or
well, no, at any time you can crank it up to 15 if you want.
Does it boost your loot /XP by playing on harder difficulties?
I think it does. Okay. I think there was something about that. Yeah.
Crazy. Diablo.
But yeah, the reason I brought up the difficulty thing is if you're feeling confident, or perhaps if you've played a lot of Ys, I don't think starting on hard would be an unwise decision. That's all. But yeah, very impressed with that. I hope we're in a time where I could see it easily getting ignored, and I hope
we're in a moment.
Maybe this conversation.
We're in a moment right now where I could never envision a world where I play this game in 2017. Like I do
have an extra code,
but I mean, even if
see it happening, it sounds so delightful too. It sounds like such a great summertime. Open a window, let the breeze come in through your house, chill out with some Ys 8. It sounds just like a nice.
It is.
Sink like 5 hours into this in a day. Just relax with it.
Yeah, I hope.
It sounds really fun.
Even though Michael P. Huber is not giving it a shot in 2017, I hope some people do. That's really cool. And man, the other game that I have to talk about, like, when it was announced, I could never envision myself saying this. And that is just how good Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is. I'm through the first world. I've unlocked another character. I've got some more abilities and stuff, and so I'm not super far, but I'm like pretty sure I have a good idea that this is a really good game. And
the reviews out there are so good.
Yeah, they are. They're extremely positive, and I think they're right on the money because it's how did this happen? It's not an easy game.
Yeah.
You look at it, you think of the Rabbids, you think of Mario. This is a game that is heavily punishing. It is a game where you really have to think about where you're moving these characters in this XCOM style battle system. And you see that like the movement kind of looks like XCOM. You see that you have things like Overwatch. You might assume that it is kind of a clone of that, but it really has a lot of its own super unique ideas that I really like. And one of those unique ideas is you move a unit to a location and you can bounce off of them. And it makes it so you can play extremely aggressively. And the game encourages you to play aggressively because enemies are shooting at you, they're blowing up your cover very quickly. And so it is a game that's super hard for you to just like aim back and pick away at enemies. And another way that they incentivize that is you can dash into enemies. So you slide into them, and that is a guaranteed hit. But it also means that you have to move close to them. So you want to like dash and then try to get behind cover and then shoot them to finish them off. And so it's just, despite being a strategy game, it feels very active. It feels like you're constantly
warp
thinking about
pipes
all of
going
the
in
warp
and out.
pipes, absolutely bouncing off people, dashing into them. You're just constantly moving. And the boss fights are really fun. Like the first boss fight that I did, the one that I've done, really this mid-boss fight.
Is that the piranha plant?
The piranha plant, and it's shooting fire at you. And fire, if you're behind cover, it will move you out of cover because you're running around crazy because you're on fire. Or like you have honey where you can make them stick to one location. And it's just the way that it does cover is really great as well. Because in XCOM, you might be shooting at somebody and it's like, okay, well, I have a 69% chance to hit him or an 85% chance. And it's all these different things where in Mario and Rabbids, it's like if they're behind half cover, you always have a 50% chance to hit. If they're behind full cover, you always have a 0% chance to hit. And if they're out in the open, you always have a 100% chance to hit. And so, like, coming off of XCOM, it's really nice to just know. To just, like, you survey the battlefield and know, all right, this is exactly, if I just stay where I am, this is exactly the percent chance I have to hit him. And that's really cool. The setup is also good. I don't really want to ruin the opening cutscene because it's so delightful, but they put more effort into how these characters, how these two worlds came together than I thought they would. But I also don't feel like they spent too much time being like, okay, we really got to convince them that this makes so much sense. They have fun with it.
This is a monumental moment.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, again, we bring up these crossovers. The reception from this game critically, and it sounds like commercially too. You know, there's a bunch of games on Switch, but top tier AAA games, not that many. It's a new system, so you know you combine the sales with the critical reception. Is this going to open the door to more crossovers? Are we going to see?
I hope so.
Donkey Kong cross whatever the hell next, and Metroid cross.
What's crazy is. What could you predict? Because just the thing, like Ben said, it doesn't make any sense. Like, like these guys in Italy just came up with this idea to put Mario and Rabbids into a strategy game where they never jump. You know, it's like...
That's the thing is, I am down for more crossovers if we can get ideas like this. I think I think it's hard for any AAA studio to be like, listen, we're gonna make a hardcore strategy game. And so if a crossover lets these elaborate, super creative, really well thought out ideas exist, then I'm all for it. Like, what a delight it is to play this game that has just so many, it's just bursting with ideas. And I think perhaps the thing I am most impressed with is how polished it feels. I don't like saying the word polished, but like they're for this crazy idea, for taking Mario, for taking Rabbids, for putting him in the strategy game, for having exploration where you have these little puzzles, just all of it feels so incredibly well thought out. Like you're taking this crazy idea and you're nailing it so well with the initial game. That's extremely impressive.
Yeah, so much care in the presentation and everything. Just
out of respect.
Like, getting Grant Kirkhope in there, you know, to do music because they know is like, he knows how to write music that's gonna fit into something like this, you know.
I don't know how this came to be. I don't know why this came to be. I don't know who like, I want to know the whole story behind it because it's really awesome. And like, if you have a Switch, this is a game that you need on there. I think. Like,
Rabbids in the next Smash probably.
I don't know.
I think that's
a lock.
I don't see how they could be like a main character, but as like one of those assist trophies,
How about since Ubisoft is connected now to Nintendo?
Ezio.
Sam Fisher.
Ezio. Smash. Just like hidden blading Mario.
Like in his throat.
Assassin's Creed is going into everything, so might as well. With Final Fantasy 15
thing.
Assassin's
Watching
Fest?
that trailer was
What?
Watching that Final Fantasy mobile trailer was bizarre too. But him stabbing Mario in the neck and then doing like the speech, like just in the middle of the battlefield, like
that's when he's open. That's when somebody else can come get him.
That would be great.
His super
shooting him with the
his smash
gun.
is just like a tower comes and he jumps off it. Like,
Or he like counters somebody and hits him with a sword or something. I don't know. I'd be into it. But
Mario Rabbids.
I'm just bringing 2 games today. I've been playing a little bit of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, which I really like, but I want to put in... There's so much to it. There's so much to this expansion, and it all seems worth talking about. I've been really impressed with it so far that I wanted to spend a little bit more time with it before I ramble on about War of the Chosen, but it seems really cool so far. But it is time for the one... the only... HOTTAKE! This HOTTAKE is inspired by Hellblade. And it's something that we've kind of already touched on in the podcast, Huber. So I want to get your thoughts on this question specifically.
All right.
I think it's fair to say that Senua in Hellblade is a tortured character, a person that is suffering mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that Hellblade deals with it is really interesting and doesn't feel cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really sell kind of the torture that she's going through.
Yeah.
And, Blood brought up Eternal Darkness, and there are definitely other games, specifically horror games, that deal with psychological issues, but I wouldn't say it's something that we commonly see. And I was thinking, the first part of this question, don't let me speak for you. Do you think Hellblade does a good job of dealing with it? And do you think there's room for games, maybe not only to talk about other mental issues or mental illness again, but other issues, like maybe physical disabilities? Like, do you think that that's something that you want to see more of? How would you want that to be presented?
Definitely. I want to see more. I cannot say if Hellblade does it well because I'm not a psychiatrist.
Sure.
But what I can say is that it has people talking, which I think is the win right there. When this game came out, people were talking about mental illness,
right?
More than normal. So yeah. I think, that is the power of movies sometimes and video games sometimes, is that, while it's entertainment, it can still bring up these issues that get people talking.
Sure. The thing about Hellblade specifically is it's this character undergoing that has mental illness, but it's in this fantastical setting. Do you think that you would want to see a game or something like that was just about mental illness in modern day? Like, would you want it just focusing on that subject specifically, or would you prefer it be kind of warped into this other story?
It all depends. I think of Beyond Two Souls maybe kind of touches on it. You're seeing the doctor and he's analyzing you.
Definitely has elements of it.
Yeah, there's elements there. I think of, Spec Ops The Line dealing with PTSD and other, issues like that.
Is there an issue you can think of specifically that you would like games to explore?
I don't put too much thought into that, just as games come, just as they come, that's enough for me. I let the creators do the talking, and I listen.
Maybe, again, something that would, I don't know what the game would necessarily be like, but something like synesthesia or whatever,
right.
Like where you kind of like see
colors.
sounds, see
Or
colors.
yeah.
Because there have been
See sound as color.
you've played a couple with Ian where like it was trying to be blindness, like trying to portray blindness and using echoes.
Beyond Eyes is a game that deals with blindness as well. I think
Beyond Eyes was, that was a couple years ago and it was not as great. But I'm trying to remember what two more recent ones you just played were.
I forget the name of it.
But
Blood. I forget the name of it.
But yeah, it's like you're exploring the house. Well, that was a different one.
Yeah.
There's another one where like you're like going back and exploring a house and stuff.
Yeah, I think of What Remains of Edith Finch recently, dealing just with, family and loss. Like, it's intense.
I was talking with, actually, before Patron D&D, I was talking with TheDarkKnight, actually, and he he was talking about Hellblade, and he's like, I'm enjoying it, but I find myself playing it in short bursts because of it's kind of uncomfortable seeing a character suffer mentally so much. And I kind of had the same experience where there was definitely times where I would get through a section of Hellblade, and it wasn't, disturbing in the sense that it wasn't like gratuitous violence or anything like that, but just seeing this character suffer so much. Again, speaking to the performance of Senua, the pain on her face, it was a hard thing to sit through. Is that something that worries you? And do you think that's something that's heightened specifically in video games?
I mean, that's, when people, you said earlier, Last of Us is going to be a good movie. I never see that argument because you're playing it. I don't care how many cutscenes Metal Gear Solid has. You are the one snapping soldiers' necks. You are the one in control. Even if a lot of the game is cutscenes and you are watching it and parts of it are passive, you still have a role to play as the driver, as the pilot. So I think, the line of, what is more powerful, a movie or a video game, I think they both can offer different things, and they both have strengths. And what Hellblade did, specifically with audio, tying it into gameplay, even, like you guys were saying about the combat, just tying all that in, is definitely a video game strength that it, leaned on.
Yeah. There's nobody, like, there's no point in a movie where if you hear somebody yell, "Hey, behind you," in the back of the room, that's gonna feel appropriate at all. It's just gonna seem like, okay, I'm gonna look away from the screen. Whereas in a video game, it makes sense. It's like, oh, okay, I need to move the camera so I can see behind me.
Right.
But then at the same time, movies are real people. If someone's suffering in a movie, you're looking right at them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily an argument for which one is more powerful. It's just like you said, they're very different.
Strengths.
It's when you're constructing a scene, right? When you're writing a script for, okay, this is where this person is going to be ridiculed or humiliated, versus in a video game when you mess up as Senua, and because you as the player did that, then they're mocking you.
Yeah.
It just has a completely different feel for it. Go ahead.
Even though into like Mass Effect 2, when your teammates die because of choices you made, you feel that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the other thing, that's a really big difference between a film and a game is just, majority of games, you are sort of like, there's a character, but you're also playing as that character. Like, you're in that role. You're kind of in that first-person role, whether it's the first-person camera or not. Yeah. And so, like, with a movie, you're always watching other people. Like, those people are always distinct from you. Like, it's, like, very rare that you'll find a movie where a bunch of people are talking at the camera and you're supposed to accept. It's like, oh, they're talking to me. Like, that rarely works, even if somebody does it.
Do you think there's validity to the argument? Sometimes I see with games that deal with pretty serious issues, or at least very contemporary issues, they go, oh man, like I use video games as escape. I use video games as a power fantasy to get away from this kind of stuff. If, as games evolve, as they become more technologically capable of simulating these experiences, do you think that any of that escapism would be lost?
That's the beauty of video games, is that there are so many. Mario and Rabbids, you want to escape.
Right.
Hop into that Mushroom Kingdom.
Hard to feel bad.
Yeah, hard to feel bad.
Hard to feel bad.
Sailing through the skies in Mario Galaxy,
Everybody's golf.
Everybody's golf, unless someone's trolling you on the green, maybe. But I mean, it's the same as movies. There's Dunkirk, and then there's Scooby-Doo, or something. I don't know. So it's just why I love movies and games so much, and just the scale and the spectrum of all of it, from super jolly, easygoing movies and games to really thought-provoking, hard-boiled stuff.
So, like you were making the obvious comparison there to other forms of medium where because it's a creative medium, there's room for many different things. We don't have to fall back on one type of thing. Do you think, again, talking about their differences, do you think that interactivity when you're dealing with these issues, when it's like, okay, I'm going to make a game about a disability or an illness that people suffer every day, and I'm going to make them feel it. I'm going to try to map this to a controller or something where they're simulating it. What do you think is the responsibility of that designer? What hurdles do you think that they have to make other than just, like a movie or a book writing words about it? And what's the difference there?
So I said earlier I can't really comment on Hellblade's, level of respect towards it because I'm not a psychiatrist. But for me, I was 100% on board and open to it right out of the gate because they worked with people that had mental disabilities and healthcare professionals as well. So they took the extra time to seek out professionals, seek out people dealing with these issues, and that is respect right there. Yeah,
and they also have said very openly, like, hey, if you're somebody that needs somebody, if you're going through something, here's an avenue for you. And yeah, I think you're right. I think okay, yes, we're talking about it. Because we're talking about it, we're also going to acknowledge how real it is. And we're not going to try to shy away from that. We're going to put that right there, right up front. It wasn't them making guesses at it. It was like, no, let's get the resources to try to be as faithful as thing that we possibly can.
Yeah, because I think, you have to really think about it's like, well, what is your overall purpose in wanting to raise awareness or address this issue, and it's like, you don't want to make a game where like you're just having people pity people,
right?
And I think, that perhaps that's again something that Hellblade does pretty well, that it's like, okay, she's struggling through these things, but she's also, fairly powerful, on her own. She is a capable person. You're not just, relying on somebody else to get you through.
Yeah, I was talking before. Blood, that's such a good point that you bring up. That was because what I was talking about before is how genuine they made it feel, and I think part of that genuineness is I didn't feel like Senua was defined by that illness, where this was a part of her, this was a facet of her character, this is something that she's dealing with in every situation that she's in, but she has a quest. She has people that she cares about. She has a history, and the game isn't so tunnel vision focused on this one aspect. They make her a multifaceted person. Just like anyone who is dealing with any sort of issue, they are not solely defined by that thing. They have so many things going on in their lives, and this is just one part of them. Maybe it's a big part, maybe it's a small part. That varies from person to person. Absolutely, that is so important. Is make people, don't make the thing, for sure. Yeah. Do you think? I think the natural follow-up question there is: do you think that there is enough diversity in the types of characters that we're seeing in video games?
There's always room for more. I think it's definitely heading in the right direction. We've seen a lot of good games this year.
Yeah.
With, different stories, different characters, different origins and backgrounds, and I think there's always room for more, but I think it's a good year. It's a good year for games.
Yeah. I was playing through Uncharted, Lost Legacy. I was playing through it with my girlfriend, and she said to me, these are really great characters. They're incredibly strong, intelligent women who are not defined by their gender. They're defined by their capabilities. And it felt like she didn't see a lot of that in video games. Like, it was kind of novel for her to experience that, and I think it made her more open to playing more things, and that is a really cool and really powerful thing as well.
Call you Nadine. Uncharted 5, let's go. I'm ready.
What do you think, Blood? Do you think there is enough diversity in the types of characters and the types of stories that we're seeing in video games?
Yeah, I think, like I was saying this, Huber, there's always room for more, for sure. There's plenty of plenty of high fantasy sword slashing games and
Yeah.
shooters and stuff, and and not necessarily that many games like Life is Strange. That's just
Right.
people having to deal with messed up lives, and and not that there aren't people trying to make those, but there's they're not on that same level of all of these different kinds of experiences and different ways of approaching video games like that hit on that level.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it takes a lot of thought and character development to be able to do that kind of a game.
And it helps that there's more games than ever and more
Right.
avenues for people to make games with Kickstarter and digital release. There's so many games out there that I may never even hear of that are telling unique and
Yeah.
different
that's-
stories.
That's another part of the question that I think is important to bring up. It's a whole different facet of this conversation, and we've kind of talked about it before on Frame Trap, but I am not saying this is not like a guilt thing. I'm to blame too, but a big reason, perhaps the first initial reason why I was so interested in Hellblade is not because of its theme or its story or its gameplay, any of it. It was because Ninja Theory worked on it. I liked other Ninja Theory games. It like, I'm going to play this because I like their other stuff.
Yeah.
You were super excited because Ninja Theory's name was attached to it. Would this have the same... Would we be talking about it with such enthusiasm, with such detail, if this was just some no-name developer who had never made a game before?
I hope so, but marketing is real.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I
Marketing
mean.
and
Like,
publishing are
there's,
super real.
you go to any GDC or any mega booth or whatever, and there are a ton of games that you never heard of exploring all kinds of different issues.
Right.
And that's where I think talking about a diversity of different kinds of games, it does come down to what the bigger publishers and things are going to invest in, because that's what's going to reach the widest audience. It's
So you think they have a responsibility to shape the discussion?
I don't necessarily know that they have a responsibility to shape the discussion, but I'm saying that they are the ones that are going to shape the discussion.
Okay.
Like if there are 50 small games out there that are exploring all of these issues, but none of us have heard of them, then there's not a discussion. But if Square Enix comes in, funds don't nod to do Life is Strange, now suddenly we're talking about this game
Right.
that probably Don't Nod may have found another way of producing on a cheaper budget, but would we have known it ever happened?
Right. And you are seeing that more and more, where you're getting these big companies funding these small studios that are doing these interesting things. But do you think it's fair to say that those big studios themselves are not really, like, what I worry about is that when we have these conversations about these issues, that we're being like, okay, these are the things that indie games can talk about, these are the things that big games can talk about, and there's this divide. So it's like we sort of expect big AAA games to kind of focus on certain things, to not deal with these issues, to be swords and sorcery, that sort of thing. And then indie games, this is where you get your, what are we going to talk about? How are we going to talk about it? Is that divide okay? Does it exist?
That's a great question. I think it partially exists. I think of the biggest budget games this year.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think of Persona 5. Persona 5 is a huge budget game, and it's
Not compared to the biggest of the big
true,
games.
but it's still a big studio, big team, big budget, and
Yeah.
they're saying a lot in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think every game is case to case, but I would say the majority, of course, is always going to be.
Do you think it's always going to be
Guns.
that way?
It sells.
Yeah.
You look at Hollywood.
Yeah.
You look at the Hollywood blockbusters, the $100 billion
Yeah.
movies.
Right.
That, and man, I don't want to get on a Hollywood rant.
No, it's okay.
No. Yeah, it's crazy that the $1 billion movies are like, Marvel. kind of sad sometimes.
But I mean, it's what you were saying earlier. It's escapism. Like people want to have thoughtful experiences and all of that, but at the same time, people want to just not. People have their own misery in their lives. Mm-hmm. They don't need to like spend every hour of their entertainment like on somebody else's hangups.
Yeah. Right.
Saw Wind River the other day. Came out of the theater, just head down, sad. See that Marvel budget come out smiling.
Yeah, I think the reason why I raise these questions is I'm not trying to get in there and plant a flag in the ground and say there is a problem. It's just like thinking about it and asking, is there a problem, and then seeing where we landed, because I go both ways on it. I agree with you, Bloodworth. Like, I'm super stoked on Tuesday night to play Destiny 2 and just make numbers go up, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't need to constantly justify our entertainment with some sort of greater purpose, but I think it is also okay to put purpose into entertainment, and it's you never ever in any situation want the scale to be tipped too far on either side. I don't think.
I love scooping it all up.
Scooping it all up.
The whole scale.
Just open, dump it in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's always the balance, the give and take. When I see or play something super depressing,
right?
Give me that Mario Galaxy.
Yeah.
Counterbalance.
I guess the thing, and maybe this is, I'm doubting myself here. Maybe this is just something that I think exists but actually doesn't. But sometimes I see like, okay, we have a bunch of indie games to announce, right? We have this sizzle reel, and sometimes I worry that the things people gravitate to are, this is like the retro game that I used to love, and it's hard for those developers to make a name for themselves unless they kind of piggyback on something somebody already knows. And maybe it's not an issue, maybe it's something that I'm over exaggerating, but it's something that I do think about sometimes.
Yeah. The platform, like having a platform to say something,
right?
In the game industry,
Absolutely.
And especially too, I can imagine it's sometimes hard to say something in the game industry because you have so many people involved. Right. You have so many,
Yeah.
Like, Kojima has full autonomy and can probably say whatever the hell he wants with his games because he is like the creative person on it all. But a lot of studios are a ton of people with different beliefs and different motivations. Then you have the business side of it. It's like, all right, we want to say something, but we also want to make some money.
That's the thing. Is games are. We were talking about the AAA level, right? Where games are so expensive to make. There's such a commitment. Even as just an independent developer, it takes everything to make a game. And so if you're thinking like, I have something to say. What if that thing doesn't land and destroys my career forever? What if it sinks this series? What if it sinks this company? I mean, it might sound like hyperbole, but I think those are very real questions where it's like, I have this thing to say, and if people don't accept it, that could be it. It's so much easier to make a game about throwing fireballs because that's not going to cause any problems, for sure. Are there any final thoughts?
2017 is a great year for video games.
It is a great year.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's on the forefront of my mind, is because we are seeing, honestly, it is an embarrassment of riches.
I'm ready to say it's the greatest year of all time for video games. I know I'm hyperbolic. I know I say outlandish, wild statements all the time. We're not even done with 2017.
It's from all directions.
I really am just ready to say it, that it's the best.
Let it out.
I'm ready, and October hasn't even come yet. I mean, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. From indie darlings to big budget to sequels to reboots to new IPs. Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
That's going to be it for our HOTTAKE. We were talking about some things that I think are important. Hopefully we got somewhere. Hopefully we handled that discussion with some amount of grace. But we are now on to emails, and I pulled a more lighthearted one because I knew that HOTTAKE was maybe going to be a little bit heavier. And so we've got an email from Christopher, and Christopher says, "Hi, allies. The live-action superhero series Kamen Rider EX Aid just ended in Japan. In it, the heroes used video game console belts to gain suits and weapons from video games, mostly thinly veiled parodies of classic franchises, in order to fight the monsters of the week. For example, Kamen Rider Brave used the JRPG Tattle Quest to gain a knight-like suit, and got a sword that allowed him to perform ice and fire attacks. My question for the panel: what real-life video game franchise would you choose to gain a suit and weapons from to fight monsters of the week, and what would the suit and weapon be?
I don't know how to answer this, but I just want to be Bowser. I'd say.
You do know. You know exactly.
Just give me the Bowser belt.
Okay.
I'm full on Bowser, breathing flame.
Are you like? Do you have like you're still Huber, but you breathe fire and have a spiky back, or are you actually just Bowser?
Yeah, I'm just Bowser.
Okay.
Yeah,
you become Bowser.
I become Bowser.
Does your mind become Bowser's mind, or is it still Michael Huber's mind?
It's my mind, Bowser's
Do you
abilities.
think they're the same mind?
I hope not, dude. Okay. Bowser's kind of crazy. He is crazy.
I meant that with love.
Bowser in Paper Mario, though.
Yeah. When you're controlling him?
I mean, watch you play. Like, somehow, every time I turn it on, it's like Bowser. I'm like, this it just feels right.
This isn't really the space for it, but hot damn is 1000 Year Incredible.
Yeah.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Make another game like that. Anyway, so you'd be Bowser. What is there a specific version of Bowser that you would be? Like Super Mario World flying around in that awesome vehicle?
Favorite Bowser Mario 3D World.
Why?
Let's get that cat suit.
Okay. That's a good answer.
Cat Bowser.
What about Odyssey suit Bowser with hat?
I thought it was unfair because I haven't played it yet.
But you know.
Yeah.
But you know that is awesome.
Oh my gosh. Those boss fights with Bowser.
Uh-huh.
You're controlling him. I know it's happening. You're throwing that hat on him. Taking over.
You're going to freak out. I want you to like record yourself experiencing that moment. How about you, Blood?
I might as well take the gravity gun.
That's a good pick. So
Yeah.
Half-Life?
Yeah, just start chucking stuff at the monster. Like, here, there's a TV here. Take that. Take that. Just grab anything in sight and start chucking it.
Do you assume the look of Gordon Freeman? You kind of already have a Gordon Freeman thing going on.
Totally.
So,
go TX.
yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Crowbar.
That goes. Well, yeah. I guess you'd have a crowbar backup.
Okay.
But the gravity gun is the main.
Dual wield crowbar gravity gun.
Blood, I have a question. You're more composed than I am. In Half-Life 2, they like actually really like I had a physical reaction. Do you remember the like black spider-like head crabs?
Oh yeah.
Those terrified me. Did they affect you emotionally in any way?
Oh yeah, like in Ravenholm and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, coming at you and you're just like trying to run backwards, shooting all those things.
Multiple screams. Yeah. For sure.
Do you think Gabe Newell just realizes that Ravenholm is like the culmination of Half-Life? And he's like, we can't top this, so we'll just never make it. Like, he's intimidated. Like, he wakes up and he has a save file queued up right at Ravenholm and just plays it all the time.
I don't think so, man. I mean, not to derail this conversation, but I honestly believe, my personal opinion.
Doesn't even think about it.
No,
ever.
Is that they look at something like Dota, they look at Counter-Strike Global Offensive, they're looking at games as a service. Like, you hear Gabe Newell talk about games as a service, and it's like they're so focused on this idea where it's like, this is where we can make so much money, these things that can last forever and can expand upon and that we can iterate on. They just seem so focused on that idea. They kind of abandon.
Make Half-Life 3 and have a service-style multiplayer. Half-Life 3, new engine, crazy tech, multiplayer that can go on for another 10 years.
But from their
With loot
perspective,
boxes.
again, just trying to play devil's advocate here, from their perspective, like, you're like, make a incredible super well-made story that lives up to this insurmountable hype of Half-Life and also have this service-based thing that goes on forever. It's like, can anybody feasibly do both?
When is enough money enough? Haven't they made enough? Do they need more? Does Gabe Newell need more cash? Like, for real.
So you're saying,
Do you need more money, dude?
so you're saying you want him to have a crisis of conscience?
Yeah. Finish the fight. I'm not asking for him to move mountains or make 100 video games, man. I'm asking for one.
Could somebody send
One
Gabe Newell
game.
Michael Huber's plea, and he just wakes up in a cold sweat and it's like, well, what I'm doing is wrong.
It is kind of a funny point though, because it's like, here's a thing that will make a lot of money,
It'll still,
but
it'll still
not
make
as
money.
much money.
Yes.
Right.
It's not like he's giving it out for free, or he's gonna lose money on it. He's still gonna make millions.
Yeah, it's.
If it wasn't promised,
I'm on
I
your
don't-
side, man.
Like, I don't even need Half-Life 3. Just give me Half-Life 2 Episode 3. Use the
Right.
same damn tech. Give me what you promised. You promised this trilogy. Close it out. Let's go.
Do you hate Dota 2 because of this?
I honestly don't hate Dota 2.
Okay.
Dota saddens me because...
Why does Dota sadden you?
Because it changed Valve forever. Like, honestly, at this point, irreparable damage, it feels like. We were just earlier talking about the threes. Left 4 Dead 3, Portal 3, Team Fortress 3, Half-Life 3.
You know,
It's all about Dota.
I don't think you're wrong, Huber. This
And
is
I don't-
not the direction I want Valve to go.
And I don't blame Dota. Dota's a great game.
And whenever I hear you talk about Valve, there's the despair, and I understand where that despair is coming from. You are emotionally invested in seeing this story end, and it's never going to end.
Yeah.
Not only that, where's Left 4 Dead, Portal, all this stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Think about the incredible list of games that we talked about. Think about all of the things that we didn't even have time on the show to mention.
True,
You
true,
just proclaimed this as the greatest year in video games
It
ever.
is.
I'm not saying
We don't need them.
I'm not saying that this corrects
We
it
don't need 'em.
or makes it
You're
better,
right.
but an embarrassment of riches.
It is.
An embarrassment.
Again,
of
I
riches.
don't... It's not an entitled thing. It's not like I demand you make these. It's just the promise of the episode trilogy. Half-Life 2,
Yeah.
Episode 1, 2, 3. You know, I don't even need Half-Life 3. Everyone's screaming for Half-Life 3.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me Episode 3.
Give him anything.
Like,
Give you
Those
a point and
episodes-
click
That
adventure.
would be
Yeah,
the
those
fun-
episodes
that would
aren't
be the
even
funniest
long.
thing though. If they just finally, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like you put it out there, let's just make it.
Just
and then
make
like
it.
this 3-hour episode 3
Exactly.
comes out
Cool.
10 years later.
that would like at that point,
Can you
even if it
imagine?
ended on a cliffhanger, I'd still be satisfied. I'd be like, all right, you held up your end of the bargain. You gave me what you promised.
Can you imagine if they kickstarted Half-Life 3? I didn't answer the email.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Never be sorry. I'm gonna pick Katamari. Put me in the prince's outfit.
Nice.
Let me roll up my enemies in a giant ball and send them into space. That sounds great.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
That was supposed to be like this just super lighthearted thing, and we went into a Valve rant. I love it.
Always right.
This is a lengthy one. An
Oh, boy.
uneasy feud between brothers coming in from Robert.
Brother drama. Where's
Yeah.
Bossman?
I thought of both you and Bossman when I
He's
played
at the
this.
airport.
Yeah.
Just
Stuck at the
waiting.
airport, trying to get packed. Greetings, allies. My brother and I usually agree on different things, and we have the same taste in games and movies. Today we had a long argument on a certain topic, and we both started thinking, what would the allies say? We have a thing with my brother and cousin that we rate each of our gaming experiences with a 1 to 5 star and 1 to 10 point system. Today I beat Hellblade, which I thought was a unique experience with an interesting story and compelling character. It didn't innovate the gameplay mechanics in any way, but I love following the character on her quest. As much as I liked the game without spoiling anything, there were a few things in the game that irritated me very much. This affected my overall score of the game. I gave my final verdict of the game to my brother and cousin. My brother immediately noticed that I had given the game a lower rating than I did another game I rated a little bit ago, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. This started our argument. He wanted to know if I thought Crash was a better game than Hellblade, because I had given Crash a better score. I told him I had forgotten how I scored Crash, and it did not matter because Crash is a totally different kind of game, and I can enjoy it in different ways. I score games individually based on the experience that I had while playing and after I am done with it. I don't go through my scoring history of games and base my score on those except if it's a game in a series, for example, the Uncharted or Arkham games. Those I think I can compare fairly. My brother thinks all games can be compared with each other, and you have to take into consideration the other games you've scored for the score to have any meaning at all. According to him, my scores don't matter anymore because I believe they can all be scored as individual experiences. So, allies, what do you think? Do you go through your review history every time you score games, or do you review them as individual experiences? Should I think about how I scored Crash before I score Hellblade?
Such a hard question because for many reasons. I mean, with Easy Allies, it's hard because there's many of us using the same scale, you know? So if I think, you know, if I'm coming in saying, yo, this game is 4 stars, but I like it way more than this game that you gave 4.5 stars or something, then that kind of messes with my brain. But yeah, I don't know what I think. I need to think a little more. This is a hard question.
I feel very passionate about this. Go ahead, Blake.
I think definitely more on the side of the question writer than his brother, because it's like you are generally writing, you know, your recommendation of this game, you know, not entirely in the absence of comparing to other games, but mostly in the absence, I think, of comparing to other games.
Absolutely.
You know, like,
but
I'm going to have a freaking awful time when it comes to Forza and GT this year coming out the same year and like a month or so apart, because those are games with pretty similar goals and structures and a lot that you can put side by side. This game's got 700 cars, this game's got 800 cars, and you know, and so those, like, it does get, you know, hard to not compare them, you know, and to not say like I need to say one is better than the other.
And aren't you still, though, drawing on the history of the games you've reviewed, you know? Aren't you drawing on that well of...
Right. Because here's what I think it comes down to is, as I sometimes see comments that make it seem as though they expect reviewers to not be human beings, to take out their soul and evaluate a product, and it's just it doesn't matter how hard you try. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to be fair. You should obviously make a conscious and sincere effort to be fair, but you don't suddenly stop existing just because you're giving a score to something.
Yes.
Like, if you're somebody, let's say you're reviewing city management games. If you're somebody that's never played them, you're gonna have a completely different review than somebody who's played them for years, for decades.
Yeah.
The things that are gonna bother you, the things that are gonna be confusing, the things that you're gonna like are going to be different because you're different people. Every single person. It's why I get so mad when people are like, well, you gave this 10 points lower than the Metacritic, therefore your review is invalid. And it's like, no, I'm not those people.
That was Ratchet and Clank for me.
I'm not those people.
I had played that whole franchise, and this reboot, while it was incredible, it felt like less than what I had gotten in previous games.
Right.
You know, so that was tricky.
But it's not just that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be accountable for the things we say. We absolutely should. In anything that I say after this, you are responsible for what you put out there in the world, and accountability is extremely important. But that doesn't mean you don't change as a person. It doesn't mean you don't grow or even regress as a person. You are going to go through different things in your life that are going to affect your capabilities as a writer, as an evaluator, as a critic. And I am not the same person in 2017 as I was when I wrote that Knack review. I've evolved. You look at my early reviews and you look at they are now, they're completely different. It's like they're from a different person because I've changed as a person. I've had different experiences. I've had different editors. I've had different things that have shaped me. Any reviewer, you take Roger Ebert, you look at his earliest work, you look at his latest work, you look at different periods of his life and what he was going through. It's different. And that's okay.
He famously brought that up with the Unforgiven review. He said at the time when he first reviewed it, he was going through some bad times in his life, and he took it out on the movie.
Right.
So he went back and he reviewed it retroactively.
Sure.
And was like, this is one of the greatest movies I ever made. It's 4 stars.
That's what made him so good, is that he acknowledged it and he was following his heart and saying, this is what I should do. I had a different experience. I'm not going to be stubborn and say that I was absolutely right. I watched it again. I had a different experiences. Compare those two different experiences side by side. That's what we should try to do.
Yep.
Like, if I go through and I rate a game low and then a year later I play through again and it's like, oh, it's great. I'm not necessarily going to re-review it, but if I can be open with my audience and acknowledge that experience, then they know where I'm coming from.
Totally.
And that's why I value things like Frame Trap, like the Easy Allies podcast, like our streams, is because I feel like our audience, more so than ever, has a chance to get to know us. Like, where we're coming from. But I think there's just no value in being like, hey, you said this thing 4 years ago that makes your current review invalid. It just seems like such a leap in logic.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I still, again, if I'm reviewing Resident Evil 7 or something, I'm still thinking about the whole franchise.
Sure.
When I'm reviewing it, like you said, I'm reviewing it kind
of in
the absence of all that. But at the same time, I do have to think about where this series has come and what it has done.
But you, as Michael Huber, have the capability of doing it because it's a series that you've been devoted to for years. Whereas, like, my Ys 8 review, I'm coming from it from somebody who does not know a lot about Ys. That is my perspective. That's going to be more or less valuable depending on the person watching the review.
Totally.
Any other thoughts, Blood?
Blood, what are your thoughts on reviewing remasters? Oh, I'm just kidding.
It's actually it is a weird question because it's like when you go into like as a person reading a remaster review or watching a remaster review, like there's all these different questions that you could have. Like, you want to, is this a good game? First off, you just want to know, how good is this game? Everyone's talking about how good is it actually? Does it hold up? Is it worth the hype? Is it just, it was good back in the day? And it's like, okay, well, how good is what they did to remaster it?
Yeah.
Did they just, make everything look gross, or did they actually make it look better, or do you lose details? Does your impression of the game change? And then, well, did they put in anything else to like make it a value, to make it worth picking up? It's just like there's all this stuff, and then then you just think about like, oh, you got to put a freaking score on that. You got to put a score on this, game that changed the shape of video games, but now it's like, oh, it's a little bit sharper.
Right.
It's like, what do? You give it a, that's the weird thing, is you give it a lesser score than it was given before? Or do you give it a higher score because it's got this extra stuff in it? Remasters are weirdo things.
But that's why I think it's valuable to not say, all right, the way that we're doing it is the right way. It's just like whatever, like a remaster, you have so much room for creativity. Like you can evaluate it just in terms of its improvements. You can evaluate it like, how valuable is this game today? Like based on what we care about in video games today, what does it speak to? What doesn't it speak to? Like there's just picking away and going with it, I think is okay. I don't know if there's a best way. Like go read. If you want to have fun time, go read game reviews from the early 90s. Like, it's just everything is different.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, and then the other thing about a remaster is people don't want you to make a different game.
Yeah.
People don't want you to make. Well, maybe, but I mean, for the most part, like people, like if you're gonna buy, say something like DuckTales remaster, like they don't necessarily want a different, you to mess with DuckTales. They just want DuckTales so they can play it and it looks as good as it could look. Yeah.
Well, they might want certain modern conveniences, and those modern conveniences that they expect will change on the time. Like, cloud saves, save states. Rewind. All that stuff. All right. Our last email before we wrap up the show is from James, licensing and branding in games.
Coleman. Every time. I'm never going to let it go.
What?
I'm never going to forget it.
Forget what?
Coleman. Jones's Coleman camping gear rant for Final Fantasy 15.
Coleman?
Jones ranting about Final Fantasy 15.
Why did that come up now?
Because of the question.
product
Licensing and branding. I thought you were calling him James Coleman. I'm like, why did you attach that to his name? We're 3 hours and 18 minutes of the show. I'm losing it.
It's just so funny to me. I love it.
I mean, any Jones rant is usually a good time.
I love a good Jones rant.
As someone who spends a relatively large amount of time playing genres that often heavily rely on licensed content, namely racing and music games, I've been thinking a lot lately about how much this dependence on cooperation from other parties complicates game development and publishing. It's always a point of frustration when games are trying to offer a selection of content, but certain license holders are either unwilling to license their properties at all, like Led Zeppelin for music games, or have an exclusivity deal with someone else, like Porsche used to have with EA for racing games. But the issues with licensing can really can have even more reach in the gaming world. With the increased prominence of digital distribution, any game with licensed content is disproportionately in much more danger of being left behind and lost to time. The worst case scenario would be something like Scott Pilgrim, where it's a digital game that gets delisted, but also think of all the pre-digital games that will almost certainly never get a remaster or re-release. For example, countless people would love a Tony Hawk or Classic Need for Speed collection, but those would be almost entirely impossible to ever happen when we're this far removed from when those games were first released. Even something as insignificant as Ava's Triumph motorcycle MGS3 could be an extra minor complication in any kind of new release of that game far into the future. Do you think because of this, games should avoid licensed content unless they absolutely depend on it, or is it still worth making the game you want in the moment, even if it means contracts keep it from being sold, or have a lot of I butchered that sentence, or have a lot of parties that could pull out? As a related question, do you think if licensing were simpler, would more games stand to benefit from it? Would real-world products add authenticity to games with contemporary or historic settings that would help players connect with them? Or would any attempts always be doomed to be perceived as tacky product placement?
Coleman.
Final Fantasy 15.
So unnecessary.
Cup Noodle.
Cup Noodle. Super unnecessary. But they probably got paid. They probably got paid.
What?
Yeah. I said the cup noodle is like fun for like the one time, but then it's like But then it's like, all right, keep making them awesome dishes, man.
I don't know. They're adding DLC where you have a giant cup noodle on your head.
Right.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty funny.
It's pretty good.
I like it. You know, I got no problem with that stuff showing up. I think game development is hard enough. If making these deals gets them more resources to make a better game now, that's what you have to do. You have to think about right now. You got to make the best game you can in the moment and not worry about what if scenarios 20 years down the line.
Well, I mean, it's good that he brings up racing games and music games specifically, where so much of their success relies on the license deals that they make.
Yeah.
Well, I just think of the most depressing one. I'm surprised you didn't mention it. The only way to play GoldenEye is to hook up a Nintendo 64. It's
Yeah.
the only way. And you better have a CRT TV, or else it's going to look weird. You better have some good N64 controllers that don't have sticky buttons or loose analog sticks. I mean,
Which they certainly do.
They certainly do.
You pull out those controllers by this point, they certainly do.
You better have 4 rumble packs, because everyone wants to feel
you
that
need
PP7.
Have you holding an N64 controller without a rumble pack in it feels wrong.
It feels
it's
wrong.
Like it's like you're doing something indecent.
Yeah.
You need that weight. It's
Yep.
comforting. It's like a blanket in your hands.
It is.
Yeah.
GoldenEye, dude.
Is this a worry from a game preservation standpoint?
It is worrying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, Scott Pilgrim and digital games. I think those are definitely the big worries.
Absolutely.
How do you feel?
Of I was trying to do Huber syndrome on, Scott Pilgrim, I think I did, or X-Men Origins Wolverine was delisted.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the?
At least that had a physical
X-Men the
release.
arcade game, they went through the trouble
That
of
was another one? Yeah.
redoing all that voice work and everything
Yeah.
for the re-release, and then whoop, it's gone now.
How do you feel about re-releases that strip out that stuff? You know, Crazy Taxi re-releases No Offspring, or
I mean,
no
that's
branded
the
stuff.
thing is, like, as strange as it sounds, like Crazy Taxi without Offspring is not good.
Yeah, it's defined by yeah.
It's like you just lose the whole vibe.
But if it's
of
the
that
only way for
game.
people to play it, I mean, that's better than nothing.
Is it better than nothing?
If they put in a generic face for Pierce Brosnan in GoldenEye or something, but the game was unchanged, you know, they changed Sean Bean's face, or they changed all the actors.
They'd have to change so
many. If it's just like lifeless faces or something,
it's gonna look like Absolver.
you know, sure, yeah. But you know, you put it on N64 Mini or whatever the hell, like, cool. You know, let people play. I bet there's so many people out there watching right now that have never played GoldenEye and may never get the chance.
Is licensing ever distracting to you in a game? Did it bother you in Final Fantasy 15?
Jones probably made me enjoy it more.
Because you were sitting there seeing it, and you're like, I know how mad this makes him. I'm having a good time. I like that. I like that a lot.
I was like stoked to go camping in 15.
Sure.
15 is definitely on that line. I mean, Coleman makes perfect sense to me, but yeah, I don't know.
Like, I would have never given it another thought.
Somewhere Jones is fuming.
Yeah, I would have never.
Yeah.
I had never even heard of Coleman. I would have thought that it was a Final Fantasy thing. You know?
Really?
I would have never known. I don't go camping. I don't know.
I have to say, that upcoming Yoshi game has moved to the top of the list.
Top of the list.
Like, it was something that I would get around to
Jones's.
when I felt like it. Now it's like, I must play this immediately because I know how much it bothers Jones.
Full playthrough with Jones.
Full playthrough with Jones.
For
All
sure.
the allies, like
Yeah.
Knack 2 style.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Oh.
Has licensing ever bothered you, Blood?
I can't think of a specific example. I'm sure that there's been some dumb moment. I remember how funny I thought it was that, like, Splinter Cell, like when you pull out the cell phone or whatever, the PDA, whatever it was at the time, and like those would be licensed. And it just seemed like such a pointless, silly little place to put a product placement.
When licensing is at its best, though. Little known game.
Oh no, I
Call-
don't.
Called
You think it's
Shenmue.
licensing? Oh, Shenmue.
Shenmue. What do you think I was gonna say?
I thought you were gonna say Call of
the
Duty.
original licensing, and that's
I was
pretty
like, do you
great.
think Call of Duty licensing is at its best?
What does Call of Duty even have?
The XP, like.
Oh, you mean real world, like doing
Yeah.
Doritos?
I mean, it's still, I think that's
Assassin's
still
Creed's
counts.
got Monster this year.
I was just thinking.
Doesn't Destiny still have Red Bull?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Yarmont? It's one of those. It's some energy drink.
Something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, that's probably why, like, they even said, they commented on it, you know, the licensing nightmare that is Shenmue. There's so many things in that game that's
But
red tape.
that is a game that, I mean, especially at the time, prided itself on authenticity and
Yeah.
putting you.
well, the
gonna play
original
Shenmue.
game especially.
We will.
A large part of that was just felt like this is just Japan in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like that's all, you know, like the fantasy elements of it really weren't as much of a draw as just like,
No.
this is cool. You can just wander around Japan and it looks like a real world Japan.
Final question. If you hit a button right now where you could just go back and live in Japan in the 80s, would you do it? Yes or no?
Permanently?
Yes.
You'd have to stay there.
No.
But then you could grow up
Yeah.
and relive.
Yeah. You come back around.
I don't know, because 2017 is.
You get to see 2017.
But, like, games are just getting better. Like, 2018? What if 2018 is even better than 2017? We got Ni no Kuni and Yakuza 6 to pave the way for 2018 right out of the gate, Ben. It's out of control.
I will make you. I will not make you. No one should ever make anyone do this kind of thing. But I would. You should play Xenoblade Chronicles. No, don't give me that.
Poor
I
Hubert.
don't know.
You
Poor
said
Hubert.
no.
I still have to play
no.
Nier Automata.
Okay.
Still gotta play
that
that.
too.
Still gotta
You
play.
said put it in. Open the mouth, put it in. That's what you said. No.
I will try.
I'm gonna call you out on something.
We're gonna play Monster
No.
Hunter. You got me on that. Monster Hunter Weekly Hunts.
Okay, that's true.
Gotcha.
All right, maybe I should ease down.
Yeah, Monster Hunter Weekly Hunts,
That's true.
dude. We're
That's
making it
true.
happen
That's true.
every week,
That's gonna wrap
like
up our
Sunday
show.
mornings or something, dude.
Sunday
morning
mornings!
hunt.
Coffee and monsters.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we can make it like a thing.
every
Oh, that'd be
Sunday.
so good.
Every Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah,
Never
Sunday
getting you guys
morning.
to church with me.
10 a.m. Tune in, wake up with a fresh hunt.
Fresh hunt.
Oh,
It's gonna be great. It's
you
gonna be
were onto
glorious.
something. You're onto something. That's gonna be our show today. I hope you enjoyed it. If this is your first time listening to Frame Trap, it kind of always goes this way. It's usually about 3.5 hours where we talk about games, sometimes non-games. We are in a game time though.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see comments that are like, I wish you would talk about more non-game stuff. Fair, but we're drowning over here.
Yeah.
We're drowning.
I
Thank you.
wanted to bring like a TV show like I usually do, but I had 3 good games to talk
You
about.
had 3 good games to talk about. If you'd like to send an email in, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Always fun reading your emails. I thought it was a really good batch this week, so thank you to everybody who sent in an email. And thank you, panelists, Michael Huber, Daniel Bloodworth. And also, quick shout out again to our sponsors. Thank you so much for supporting the show. It means a lot to me. If you would like to support Frame Trap, if you'd like to make it bigger and better, as a $250 tier on Patreon, you can find more information at patreon.com/easyallies. I had a lot of fun today. Panelists, I hope you had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Audience, I hope you had a lot of fun. And we will see you next time.